Konoha, Reviving Senju, starting with Concubines. Author, Vortex. Chapter 276, You Are Still Weird. As if he didn't notice all this, Kurosaki Epigo didn't react immediately, and was swallowed by Sakura's peach blossom sea in an instant. Know that Senbon Sakura is scattered, and every petal is a sharp blade. Crescent. Sky Chong. Kurosaki Epigo didn't dare to be careless, holding Tenza Zangetsu in his hand. The released and decomposed version of Crescent Moon directly burst out. The Sakura flower sea of Byakuya Kakiki disappeared instantly when it touched such a violent crescent sky. Zaraki Kenpaki saw all this in his eyes, and said coldly, Captain Kakiki, I hope you can leave this accident to me. As if he didn't expect Zaraki Kenpaki 240 to appear at this time, Byakuya Kakiki was a little surprised at the first time, but quickly adjusted the loading. Give it to you? You actually asked me, the captain of the 6th Division, the head of the Kakiki family, to ask me to give you the travel accident. Byakuya Kakiki looked very disdainful. You, a person who can't even Bankai Zanpei Kuto, stop kidding yourself. As if being stabbed in pain, Zaraki Kenpaki really stopped talking. At this moment, Byakuya Kakiki looked at Kurosaki Epigo solemnly. Next is my battle with you. It is about the glory of my Kakiki family. No one else is allowed to intervene, otherwise it will be against my Kakiki family. Byakuya Kakiki's words were obviously addressed to Zaraki Kenpaki. Although Zaraki Kenpaki is a reckless man, this kind of meaning can still be heard. Cut. After a disdainful contempt, Zaraki Kenpaki decided to hold back for the time being. Of course, this is not to fear the identity of the Kakiki family, the 4 major families of the Soul Society. As a martial idiot, he knows the disappointment of being interrupted in battle. The 2 people who are fighting at this moment are Kurosaki Epigo and Byakuya Kakiki. As the captain of the 11th team, he naturally cannot take advantage of others. Even if he wins against Kurosaki Epigo at this moment, in the end it will be nothing but an invincible victory. Out of these considerations, Zaraki Kenpaki finally chose to endure. Without the influence of others, the 2 of Kurosaki Epigo and Byakuya Kakiki entered a state of focused fighting. Senbon Sakura Middle-Kian of Byakuya Kakiki turned into a wave of Sakura flowers and swept towards Kurosaki Epigo. And Kurosaki Epigo crossed Tenza Zangetsu again to block. Accompanied by a crescent moon sky that exudes a bright black light, Byakuya Kakiki's Sakura flower wave was also cut with a gap. At this time, Senju Starry Night also came to the scene. With Inuaraheim watching the battle between Kurosaki Epigo and Byakuya Kakiki, Senju Kusinai couldn't help feeling, are the 2 already Bankai? If I knew it, I would have come here earlier. He really wanted to see the pressure Kurosaki Epigo and Byakuya Kakiki created with their first Bankai. If it weren't for going to support Ishida Oya first, they wouldn't have missed such a wonderful opening of the battle. Finally caught up because of running too fast, Inuaraheim was panting out of breath. At this moment, Kurosaki Epigo also noticed the arrival of Inuaraheim. Inu, are you okay? As if feeling Kurosaki Epigo's concern, Inuaraheim quickly responded, I'm fine, brother Kusinai saved me. Only then did Kurosaki Epigo notice the existence of Senju Starry Night. Did you save Inu? Thank you so much. You're so weird. It can be heard that Kurosaki Epigo is sincerely thanking. Senju Kusinai reluctantly responded, this is what I should do. I am also very comfortable to greet Miss Inuaraheim. Kurosaki Epigo obviously didn't understand Senju Kusinai's words, but Inuaraheim's face turned slightly red. Recalling the scene where the 2 had an in-depth exchange last night, Inuaraheim felt shy for a while. Fortunately, the contract was successfully signed in the end, and the ending was good. Although I felt a little hot when I stamped it at the end, I got Uzumaki augmentation gloves after all. No matter how you think about it. When Kurosaki Epigo was distracted, Byakuya Kakiki took the opportunity to attack, and millions of Sakura flower blades instantly engulfed Kurosaki Epigo. Senbon Sakura Kei and Sakura flower blades swept across Kurosaki Epigo's body like a tornado. In order to resist Senbon Sakura Keijishi's attack, Kurosaki Epigo could only slash the surrounding sword net in a panic. The sound of the blade hitting was sonorous and powerful, and the sparks splashed in all directions shocked people's hearts. Inuaraheim seemed to feel the danger that Kurosaki Epigo was facing, and his expression was a little anxious. 1.4 Brother Kusinai, can you help me save Kurosaki-kun? Senju Kusinai glanced at Inuaraheim and shook his head decisively. Of course not. Of course Renzik Singh I would not do such a thankless job of saving people. And this time his purpose is to let Aizen take out Hogyoku from Rukia's body. If he saves the person now, what about Hogyoku? Without Hogyoku, the so-called Minnows Grand of Mundo would not be able to reincarnate in a short period of time, and their combat effectiveness would not be able to improve. Without Mundo Espada's rule-based combat power, some of the Invisible Empire's combat power could not be dealt with at all. Chapter 277, Execution. The Spear of SoKyoku. Of course, Inuaraheim would not understand Senju Kusinai's thoughts. Seeing Kurosaki Epigo being wrapped by Senbon Sakura Jingyan, her expression became extremely tough decisively, and she took out Uzumaki gloves to go to support. For Inuaraheim's approach, Senju Starry Night did not intend to stop it. After all, this Uzumaki glove is also a blood and sweat reward that Inuarahan got through her own, so it is naturally eligible to use it at will. In addition, Senju Kusanai can just take this opportunity to see how scientific ninja tools can play in the face of such a level of power. Kurosaki-kun, don't worry, I'll help you right away. After Inuarahan put on the gloves, he recalled how to use them before, and used the spiritual power in his body to induce Uzumaki to increase the energy in 14 gloves. Accompanied by a near-piercing sound of piercing the sky, a rapidly spinning blue energy ball appeared in front of everyone one by one. At this moment, Kurosaki Yakugo is still slashing at Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi. In order to prevent Kurosaki Yakugo from breaking through the defense, Byakuya Kakiki also manages his own Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi very carefully. Every time he is about to be broken through, Byakuya Kakiki is always able to fill in the blanks. However, after a moment of stalemate between the two, Byakuya Kakiki suddenly felt a very special energy suddenly appear. Sage up middle dot Yuling Rasengan. The target that Inuarahan attacked was precisely the position where Byakuya Kakiki surrounded Kurosaki Yakugo. Boom! After the millions of Sakura sword waves in the state of Sakura flowers were hit by the Jade Spirit Rasengan, a violent roar erupted instantly. At this moment, a gap was torn out of the net that was originally tightly stitched together. Seeing the sudden flaw in front of him, Kurosaki Yakugo immediately seized the opportunity and displayed Tenza Zagetsu's signature skill, Crescent Skychong. Accompanied by the sharp-bladed black light, Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi was completely torn apart this time. Almost immediately, Kurosaki Yakugo pulled away from Byakuya Kakiki for the first time. Kurosaki Yakugo, who escaped from death, panted heavily, and looked at Inuarahan with a surprised face. Inu, was that powerful attack just now your ability? I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Inuarahan looked at Senju Kusanai with a little blush. Actually, thanks to brother Kusanai's help this time. Starry Night? Is this the big brother? Kurosaki Yakugo looked at Senju Starry Night, and said with gratitude, thank you, big brother, for not only saving Inu, but also indirectly saving me. Senju Kusanai laughed. You're welcome, I just like to help others, you keep fighting. When he heard the word fight, Kurosaki Yakugo's expression became alert again, and he did not forget to tell Orahan, this is my personal battle with Byakuya Kakiki, you better leave it alone. Although it is also for Inuarahan's safety considerations, but most importantly he also thinks about a fair duel with the enemy. After Inuarahan walked away, Kurosaki Yakugo asked with some reluctance, you know that Rukia Kakiki is your sister. Do you really have the heart to watch her die? To be precise, Rukia Kakiki is not my sister, but my late wife's sister, Byakuya Kakiki explained. Looking at Byakuya Kakiki with a serious face in front of him, Kurosaki Yakugo felt speechless for a moment. Whether Rukia Kakiki is your sister or your late wife's sister, she is a relative of your Kakiki family after all. Why? Do you just have the heart to watch your relatives be beheaded? Hearing what Kurosaki Yakugo said, Byakuya Kakiki thought about it seriously, and then replied indifferently all the way. The Kakiki people who have made mistakes need to wash away their sins. Rukia Kakiki is trying to clear the name of the Kakiki family, and I don't think there is anything wrong with it. Having said that, Byakuya Kakiki actually hoped that Kurosaki Yakugo and the others could successfully save Rukia Kakiki. This is why he will release the water. 697 Otherwise, just awakened Bankai like Kurosaki Yakugo is not his opponent at all. Zaraki Kenpaki felt a little bored when he watched such a battle. TCH, I thought there would be a wonderful battle, but I didn't expect to play house with children. At this moment, Kurosaki Yakugo, who had just escaped from being surrounded by Byakuya Kakiki, suddenly lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Hey, the time seems to be coming soon. I'm also for the safety of the Soul Society. You shouldn't blame me for meddling in the fight at will, right? Kuretsuchi Mayuri's voice sounded. This boy who was in an accident has been poisoned by my drug. Let him rest for a while. According to the time, it seems that we should execute the execution. So accompanied by Kuretsuchi Mayuri's piercing laughter, a gigantic spear of SoKyoku appears from Bipolar Hill. Rukia Kakiki stepped on the execution platform and was knocked down halfway. Almost immediately, the spear of SoKyoku burst into flames. Chapter 278, Aizen's Rebellion. The flames on the spear of SoKyoku are extremely fierce, and the fire is as huge as a phoenix on fire. The flame phoenix soared into the sky, and then swooped down. The target was directed at Rukia Kakiki. The scorching flame seems to be able to evaporate a person's soul. As long as it penetrates Rukia Kakiki's body, it can destroy both body and spirit. Byakuya Kakiki, who was still fighting with Kurosaki Yakugo just now, was silent at the moment. A crystal tear slowly flowed from the corner of his eye. He is not a heartless person, but as the current head of the Kakiki family, he cannot ignore other members of the Kakiki family just because of his sister-in-law. Rukia Kakiki looked at the flaming phoenix in front of her with the potential to burn the sky, and slowly closed her eyes, waiting for the moment of accepting death. as if feeling the power of SoKyoku's flame. Rukia Kakiki's body emitted a bright blue light. It is as bright as a sapphire in the night sky. After discovering this gem, Kusanai's eyes moved slightly. Hogyoku. Sure enough, Hogyoku was really hiding inside Rukia Kakiki. However, Senju Kusanai, who has seen Hogyoku, can use the space ability of the Sky Hand Force to get Hogyoku in his hand, but he is not in a hurry to take it out. It is better to leave this matter to Aizen. The menacing fire phoenix descended from the sky, and it was about to blast Rukia Kakiki into ashes. However, in the next second, the picture that everyone was looking forward to did not happen. Rukia Kakiki also rushed to be puzzled, and found out after slowly opening her eyes. There was a figure standing in front of him, just blocking the flame of SoKyoku's spear from the outside. You are Senju Sanksi ? Rukia Kakiki vaguely remembered the scene of the brigade invasion before. Captain Yamamoto not only did not eliminate brigade, but gave him the status of a special contract Shinigami, and was instantly appreciated by Captain Aizen, becoming the third seat of the 5th Division. This person is naturally Senju Starry Night. However, the only thing Rukia Kakiki didn't expect was that Kienki and Kusanai would actually save her. Why take such a big risk to save me, a sinner? Senju Kusanai looked puzzled. Sinner? You? Hee, don't be ridiculous. Whether you are a sinner or not has nothing to do with me. I just think this matter is very strange, and I need to report it to Captain Yamamoto before making a plan. At this time, the figure of Aizen appeared. Sure enough, just as Senju Kusanai expected, with the appearance of Aizen, the collapse of Rukia Kakiki's body was also reduced to Aizen's heavy punishment for the first time. The strength of Aizen who got Hogyoku has improved by leaps and bounds, but Rukia vomited a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Abararenji quickly stood up to protect Rukia Kakiki. At this moment, Aizen also expressed his approval of Abararenji's behavior. Vice Captain Abarai, I'm very pleased to see you step forward. I got Hogyoku today, I'm in a good mood. I hope you don't block me, because it will spoil my mood. You know, it is very difficult to step on an ant without hurting the ant. Senju Kusanai just watched Aizen pretending to be silently, and I have to say that Aizen SoKyoku is really a villain. Little B puts it up in a suit, which is amazing. The other captains obviously didn't expect Aizen to appear suddenly, and it seemed that they were about to betray Captain Aizen. What do you mean? Are you going to betray Jingling Court? How can the old man tolerate you? Seeing the situation, Komamura-Sajin immediately pulled out Zanpei Kuto to prepare for the organization. Just when he was about to make a shot to stop it, Tauzen Kaname stopped in front of Komamura-Sajin. Captain Kashawamura, Master Aizen's Majesty does not allow anyone to violate it. Don't force me to take action against you. Seeing that the person blocking him turned out to be his best friend from the past, Komamura-Sajin looked in disbelief. Tauzen, I knew you had other thoughts in your heart. But even so, I didn't expect you to join forces with Aizen. Komamura-Sajin's tone was heartbroken, as if he hated iron but not steel. However, Tauzen Kaname did not buy it, but retreated to Aizen immediately. Almost at the same time, Aizen borrowed the power of Banya, Nuo Haozao, to open a dark cavity. This is the portal from Mundo, and at the same time as the black cavity opened, countless minnows Grand Killian fell from the sky. Although I really want to say goodbye to you, Captain Yamamoto seems to be about to break free. My current strength is not enough to compete with Captain Yamamoto. Then everyone, Aizen, will take my leave this time. I believe we will meet soon. At that time, I hope that our old acquaintances can have a good time talking about the old days. While speaking, a dazzling white light appeared under Aizen's feet, supporting Aizen SoKyoku in midair and slowly rising. At this moment, Aizen SoKyoku looked towards Senju Starry Night. Chapter 279, appearing in Mundo. 3 Senju seats. Although we haven't been together for a long time, I think you are a very talented person. Why don't you go to Mundo with me? Senju Kusanai looked up at Aizen, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. Okay, that's what I mean too. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Senju Kusanai won Aizen's invitation without any hesitation at all. Even Aizen didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Although he knew that Senju Kusanai had other thoughts in mind, Aizen still put down the portal. In that case, let's go to Mundo together. Senju Kusanai just agreed casually, and was immediately led to Mundo. Surrounded by a group of Killians, Senju Kusanai followed Aizen and his group directly to the virtual circle. However, while traveling, Senju Kusanai secretly cast the effect of Rinnegan, and directly traveled to another location in the virtual circle. When Aizen was conducting experiments 100 years ago, Mundo had been modified to a great extent. Senju Starry Night is going to observe the situation before making the next 460 plan. Seeing the endless desert in front of him, Senju Kusanai was also very moved. Such a huge Mundo was easily mastered by Aizen. This shows that Aizen actually has certain abilities. For now, as long as Aizen performs the Arrancar ceremony for Espada, Senju Starry Night can directly reap the rewards. This is what the praying mantis catches, the cicada and the oriole follows. At this time, Senju Kusanai suddenly heard a girl crying. Why do you treat Nilu like this? Whoa. Senju Starry Night, who heard the sound, teleported over immediately. Sure enough, there were a few people standing here and there in the desert. Noitra held up her own Zanpakuto and was slowly approaching the little girl like Noitra. Nelliel, you clearly know that I hate you, so you shouldn't appear in front of me again. While speaking, Noitra raised his knife and prepared to kill Nelliel in front of him. Senju Kusanai directly used the ability of the Heavenly Hand to teleport Nelliel to her feet. Noitra cut down with a knife, but it ended up empty. Who dares to meddle in other people's business? Looking around, he immediately noticed the existence of Senju Starry Night. Although you are not a Shinigami, you also have a nasty aura about a Shinigami. Who the hell are you? Why are you in Mundo? Senju Kusanai looked at Noitra indifferently. Me, Senju Kusanai. As for why I appear here, it is beyond your control. Finding that Senju Kusanai's tone is so indifferent, Noitra is not calm at all. Are you underestimating me? You don't think you are stronger than me, do you? You must know that the last person who despised him so much was Nilu in front of you, and you must know that Nilu used to be the third-ranked existence in first-generation Espada. Just because Nelliel ignored Noitra's power and just touched Noitra's fragile spirit, she joined forces with Zalaporo to frame Nelliel. That's how she becomes like a child. BHDC, Senju Kusanai looked at Noitra in front of him. His expression was still very disdainful. Compared to the general strength system Rankar, your strength can indeed be regarded as a top existence. However, I don't need the Rankar of the power department, so please die. As soon as the words fell, Kien Kusanai directly closed the seal. Sage up middle. Contract summoning technique. After a pact summoning, Inuaraheim appeared in Mundo. Looking at the surrounding desert, use Araheim for the whole person. What's happening here? Where am I? What happened? Looking around for a week, Inuaraheim seemed to have guessed some causes and consequences after discovering the Senju Starry Night next to him. At this time, Senju Kusanai also came forward and explained the purpose of coming. Miss Inuaraheim, sorry to take up your private time, because Miss Rankar seems to have suffered a slight injury and needs your treatment. Inuaraheim looked at the childlike Nilu in front of her, and immediately noticed the scar on her face. This is the source of her Reiatsu leak, which is why she turned into a child. After figuring out the situation, Inuaraheim immediately cast the healing effect of the double-day return shield. This is the ability to go back in time and restore damaged parts to their original state. After Inuaraheim's treatment, the scars on Nilu's head gradually disappeared. A piercing red Reiatsu soared into the sky in an instant and went straight into the sky. Nilu's petite body also gradually swelled and grew bigger under the red light. Not long after, the childlike Nilu turned back into the adult state of the original second Espada Nelliel Duodesavan. I have to say, tall, wearing a white combat uniform, the whole person looks very sassy. Inuaraheim obviously didn't expect that a little girl who looked like a fool could turn into such a slim beauty. The expression looked very surprised. Chapter 280, Little Nilu Who Can Transform. Fifth Espada Noitra Gilgazi expression at the moment was stunned. It never occurred to him that the Espada Nelliel Twiddleshwink, who was once framed by him, could return to his original form again. You must know that when he was still the 8th Espada, Nelliel was already strong enough to be the 3rd Espada. This power gap is not even a tiny bit. The reason why Senju Starry Night chose to heal Nellielu was also to see if Nelliel's strength could defeat Noitra. You must know that when Nilu briefly changed back to Nelliel, she was temporarily at an advantage in the fight against Noitra. When she was preparing for the final fatal blow, due to excessive power consumption, Nelliel turned into the form of a little girl again. In this way, Noitra finally won without a fight. Senju Starry Night is to see the difference in strength between the two, or mainly to see how powerful Nelliel is. Miss Inuaraheim, the battle between these two people is very important. You must always pay attention to the surrounding environment. It is best to set the end of the 3-day shield in advance. With a reminder from Senju Kusanai, Inuaraheim really showed his ability of shield and 6 flowers. However, what is different is that this time she was able to open 2 barriers, one for her own defense, and the other barrier appeared in front of Senju Kusanai. 10 minutes. Kusanai was very relieved to see that there was an additional barrier in front of him. At the same time, the two who were fighting not far away also officially entered the state. Nelliel, why do you keep getting on with me? You know that I hate you, but you still want to appear in my sight again. Are you trying to get along with me? Nelliel's eyes were indifferent, and she snorted coldly with disdain. Noitra, you only know about savage fighting, which is the most unacceptable to me. In my opinion, your behavior of blindly following your instincts to fight is no different from those beasts that have no self-control ability. Hearing Nelliel's disdainful complaints, Noitra was so angry. Nelliel, do you still look down on me so much? Even if I have the ability to become the 5th Espada, even so, you still look down on me? Facing Noitra's hysteria, Nelliel doesn't care at all. No matter how many Espadas you become, it is meaningless in front of my eyes, because you are always weaker than me. No matter how hard you try, it is impossible for your strength to beat me. Nelliel's tone was very indifferent, but the calmer her tone was, the more Noitra felt that she was underestimated. Unforgivable. It's really unforgivable. How dare you despise me? I will make you pay the price. While speaking, Noitra's Zanpakuto began to emit dazzling white light. Pray, holy weeping mantis. Accompanied by Noitra's liberating speech, an iron car-wielding 4 giant scythes appeared instantly. That tall and mighty figure, coupled with the crescent-shaped tentacles above his head, made him look very intimidating. Nelliel, you dare to underestimate me, I will make you pay a crucial price for this. With a roar, Noitra brandished a huge scythe and launched an instant attack, asking for flowers. Nelliel's reaction to this was still very indifferent. However, although her attitude was indifferent, she did not dare to underestimate the enemy. She once teamed up with Noitra, and she still has some understanding of its power. Underestimating the enemy means death. Sing it, Gazelle Rider. Nelliel held Zanpakuto in both hands, and said the liberation language calmly. A flash of red light flashed, and Nelliel turned into an antelope knight holding the spear of the Emerald God. The double-headed horns that were originally attached to the skull mask have become segmented and curved long horns. The collarbone, shoulders, elbows, and hands are all covered with white armor, and black long-sleeved gloves are added to the arms. The whole image becomes very wild and unruly. Unexpectedly, Yuji's style is better than the human form just now. Seeing that, Senju Kusanai suddenly thought of a question. This form is very similar to the centaur form. If conceived in this form again, will the child be in the womb of a human, or in the womb of a horse? Thinking of this, Senju Kusanai suddenly had a bad taste in his heart. But for now, it's better to watch the battle quietly. Facing Noitra Gilga's giant scythe, Nelliel chose to directly collide head-on. Nelliel of the emerald shooting gun sprinted towards Nuo's direction, and the emerald shooting gun in her hand became extremely violent in an instant, and was enveloped by an extremely powerful Reiatsu in an instant. Under Reiatsu's wrapping, Quize's gun became bright and shining, which was very dazzling. Boom! Accompanied by a roar that shook the world, the giant sickle and the emerald gun collided violently. The scene is very grand, and it seems to have a shocking power prince. Chapter 281, Wang's Flash. The aftermath caused by Reiatsu instantly detonated the surrounding air. The sky-shaking roaring sound wave diffused for the first time, and scattered in all directions. Although Senju Kusanai and Inuarahan had 3-day shields, the violent wind still made them feel lingering fear. I didn't expect the collision of these two people to have such a terrifying effect. It seems that I did underestimate Noitra's history. Senju Star Yoruichi was observing the situation on the battlefield, and at the same time complained in a low voice. Inuarahan looked timidly at the deep ravine not far away, and it was hard to imagine that the ravine was actually the impact of 863 caused by the aftermath of the battle between two people. The traces of inadvertent battles have such domineering power. So how terrifying is the real strength of these two people? It's really scary. Inuarahan and Senju Starry Night are still watching the battle, while Nelliel and Noitra act like they don't exist. During the duel just now, Noitra was so shocked that his mouth was numb, and now his 4 hands were trembling at the same time. You must know that Nelliel was fighting with herself just now with the emerald shooting gun in one hand, but she actually used 4 hands to parry. The result was nothing more than a draw. True to the horror of the original third espada, Noitra regretted it a little at the moment. If I had known it earlier, I would not have acted aggressively in front of Nelliel, and now there is no way to end it, and I even face the danger of my life. It's really not worth the candle. Nelliel, why do you have to target me? You looked down on me from the beginning, and now you want to kill me, so you can't tolerate me like that? When Nelliel heard this, she was almost laughed at by Noitra. I killed you? If I remember correctly, it seems that you have been chasing me who has become a child. It should be you who killed me, right? Noitra was stunned and speechless. Although what Nelliel said was very reasonable, he never thought that a meddling Thousand Suns Starry Night would appear on the way. Not only successfully rescued Nelliel, but even healed Nelliel's previous serious injuries. What an unexpected plot development. Don't underestimate me. Noitra looked at Nelliel viciously, and directly accumulated a round of Suro. This is a powerful attack skill that can be used by Gento above Meno's grand level. Noitra directly used the full Suro, but as Espada's strength, he could use the specially strengthened Suro. That is Wang's Flash. Wang's Flash is even several times more powerful than Meno's Grand Suro, because the strength is too strong. This kind of Wang's Flash is not allowed to be used under the sky of Xuai Palace. However, Noitra had already lost his mind a little bit, and even used such a terrifying Reiatsu with all his strength. This made Nelliel also startled. Senju Kusanai was watching the whole battle not far away. When Noitra used Wang Suro's light, he instantly felt that this move was inexplicably familiar. This is similar to the tailed beast bomb. Just when Senju Starry Night was still curious, Noitra's King Suro light directly shot out. Because the power is too strong, the space under the sky has become a little distorted. Nelliel frowned, not daring to be careless in her heart, so she directly used her own unique move, that is, Suro Reprise. With such a move, Nelliel directly absorbs Noitra's King Suro light, and then reflects it back with her own power. Noitra looked dumbfounded. Since the last battle was won by a sneak attack with Szayelaporo, I still don't know much about Nelliel's unique move. The entire Xuei Palace is forbidden to release Wang Xu's flashes, so Neutra naturally doesn't understand Nelliel's ability to absorb Zero. Seeing such a magical skill for the first time, Neutra was stunned. You must know that he is good at strength, and the skill he is most satisfied with is Wang Xu's flash. However, this time, the flash of his master Xu was directly recovered by Nelliel and then turned back to attack himself. Neutra was caught off guard. In a panic, he could only raise his sickle to block. However, the strengthened King Zero light. Is his sickle able to resist? You must know that Ulquiola's Zero can even break Kurosaki Yakugo's bullhead form, which shows the horror of its strength. It's also banned for a reason. Neutra's Wang Zero light was strengthened by Nelly 5.2 and then refracted back, and the surrounding air also appeared a space distortion visible to the naked eye. In the next second, the terrifyingly powerful King Zero light actually directly penetrated Neutra's giant sickle, and directly penetrated Neutra's chest. Neutra's flesh was originally stronger than iron, and Zaraki Kenpaki wanted to break through the defense by chopping, and he needed to put his hands together to do so. Zaraki Kenpaki's body, which could not be shaken by one hand, was penetrated by a hole the size of a full moon at this moment. Neutra couldn't believe his eyes. Chapter 282, Nelliel, returning to the blade. No, this is impossible. Am I going to die? Accompanied by the hollowness in the body, the power in Neutra's body is almost in a state of rampage. At this moment, Neutra was very panicked, but there was no way to turn the situation around. After hesitating for a moment, Neutra looked at Nelliel. It's you. All because of you. I pursue power wholeheartedly, and I just want to survive in this world of the jungle. What's wrong with me pursuing power? You ruined everything for me. Even if I die, I will drag you into my back. Neutra lost his mind amidst the continuous roars, but finally the remaining willpower detonated the calendar area in his body. Although Neutra is just an Ajuches, as an Espada, he has directly raised his strength to the level of the 5th Espada. This is already the strongest existence under Vasto Lord. 17. You must know that the first 4 Espadas are all Vasto Lord, and Neutra thinks that he has reached the peak of the post-CAS. Even when facing the former 3rd Espada, Nelliel whose body is Vasto Lord, he was also not afraid at all. As his curtain call performance, Noi specifically detonated the remaining power zone in his body. As strong as the 5th Espada, when he was about to die, he detonated the power of his own remnant body, and its power was comparable to Wang Xu's flash, and even worse. When an explosion occurs at such a close range, everyone present will be affected. Seeing this, Nelliel also turned pale with fright. He's going to explode himself. Run away. While speaking, Nelliel stood in front of Senju Kusinai and Oniwarihime, looking resolutely at the restless force in front of her, as if preparing to take such a tyrannical self-destruct attack head-on. However, it is impossible for an explosion carried out in such a fast time not to be affected. All she had to do was try to offset the shockwave from the explosion with her own strength. Boom! In the next second, a burst roared. The dazzling Madara bloomed instantly, followed by billowing thick smoke. The smoke and dust fill the air, forming the effect of covering the sky and the sun. Nelliel is ready to do whatever it takes, but the sound of the explosion is fleeting. After the smoke cleared, the scene became peaceful. The sun is shining brightly and the breeze is warm. It was as if the fierce battle just now did not exist. Nelliel once thought that the battle she just fought was an illusion. However, Madara's antelope state at this moment is always reminding her of what happened just now. Miss Nilu, you must be very strange, right? There was such a powerful explosion just now. Why is it so calm at this moment? Nelliel nodded. As the 5th Espada, Neutra's strength has actually reached the peak of Ajuches, and the power it exerted when it exploded is definitely greater than Wang Xu's flash. The explosion that is enough to distort space. Why is it so calm? Nelliel's expression was very curious, and Kianzi Kusinai didn't intend to hide it anymore. Actually, the explosion of Neutra just now was really powerful. However, I used the ability of space transfer to transfer Neutra and his explosion to other worlds. After explaining what happened just now, Senju Kusinai looked at Nelliel who was in an antelope state, and couldn't help asking, Miss Nilu, I have a question I want to ask you. Nelliel obviously didn't understand the situation just now, and she was still thinking about it at the moment, so she just answered subconsciously, if you have any questions, just ask. With Nelliel's affirmative answer, Senju Starry Night no longer has any worries. My question should be very simple to you. Your antelope is in the same state as a centaur, and you have 2 stomachs. Then when you are pregnant, will the child be in the belly of a human, or will it be in the belly of an animal? Nelliel is very monogatari. Even though 560 has imagined countless outrageous problems, there is no such thing as the strange problem of Xing Starry Night. This kind of question cannot be asked without cerebral thrombosis for 10 years. What kind of brain circuit is this? After cursing inwardly, Nelly explained with a smile on her face, actually, I'm not pregnant yet, so I don't know which belly the baby will be in. This is not perfunctory, but a fact. In fact, Nelliel has no experience of pregnancy, but Kianman Kusinai does not intend to let her go. If you really don't know, Why don't we do an experiment? Nelliel was clearly deluded. Experiment? What experiment? Facing Nelliel, who was like a curious baby, Senju Kusanai didn't want to be a joke, and simply stated the purpose of his visit this time. To be honest, I originally came from another world. Which is this world? Some time ago, I accidentally inquired about a very remarkable thing. Chapter 283, Conquering Nelliel. Senju Kusanai patiently explained the purpose of this trip to Nelliel. Of course, when it comes to things like Yellow Bark, Senju Starry Night is just passing by. It also includes the project that Aizen started 100 years ago. Nelliel frowned upon hearing this. She also did not expect that Aizen would have such a big conspiracy, and she would not have thought that Yuhabush, the king of the Quincy, was planning a revenge that would endanger the three realms. You just said that Yuhabush's strength is even stronger than that of Aizen. But even the strength of our virtual circle king is insignificant in front of Aizen. Although we know the current predicament, what can we do? Nelliel asked curiously. Senju Kusanai heard the words, and smiled confidently. Yuhabush's Quincy possesses the power of holy text, most of which are rule-based, and the abilities of Uarankars are basically rule-based. This is just enough to restrain the strength of the Quincy. Nelliel listened carefully to Senju Kusanai's explanation, and suddenly recalled the ability of Baragan, the former king of the virtual circle, in her mind. Can make everything in the world decay and decay, even Kaido and Reiatsu can decay and even decompose. If Aizen didn't use mind control abilities and use illusion to limit Baragan's ability, it would be really difficult to defeat Baragan. Not only that, Nelliel recalled that when she was assassinated, Szayelaporo, who joined forces with Neutra, was also a very troublesome existence. Not to mention the strongest existence of Mundo before the split, but after the split, Szayelaporo is also at the level of Ajuchas, ranking 8th Espada. Whether it is notification of conception or duplication of dolls, they are all very tricky abilities. I heard that there are Killian who has the ability to eat and grow infinitely, and Zomari who can control others by looking at them. Back then, that Alquiola cipher seemed strange too. Alquiola's gloomy expression appeared in Nelliel's mind, and she always felt that he was hiding some secret. Thinking of this, Nelliel seemed to have thought of something suddenly, and asked with a puzzled look, Senju Kusanai, I can understand your thoughts, but Aizen's strength is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Now that Aizen has got SoKyoku, are you really confident that you can beat Aizen? Senju Kusanai also looked surprised. When did I say that I was going to war with Aizen? A rhetorical question confuses Nelliel. How can I control the power of Mundo without defeating Aizen? Nelliel was worried about this, and Senju Yoruichi immediately relaxed. I don't need to defeat Aizen at all. This Mundo is the result of his painstaking efforts for 100 years. How can I grab it from him? Senju Kusanai smiled meaningfully, and then continued, actually, my ability is somewhat similar to Aizen's hypnosis illusion. Halfway through the conversation, Senju Starry Night's Rinnegan directly adjusted to the form of the Red Lugu. With the appearance of the double Rinnegan, Senju Kusanai directly teleported Nelliel into his own space, and then cast his own Rinnegan illusion in this private space. At this moment, Senju Starry Night can create a dream-like infinite Tsukuyomi. In just a short moment, Nelliel seems to have experienced thousands of years of long years. In the illusion, Nelliel fully enjoys the life she once imagined but could only dream of, including the regrets I had during my lifetime. I went through all of them through the dream. Too late to say goodbye to loved ones, too late to enjoy life. There are also all kinds of regrets. Nelliel finally completed the consummation of life in a dream. At this moment, she seemed to be a Menos Grand instead of an ordinary human being. When she opened her eyes again, Nelliel's eye circles were red. How is this going? Obviously only a short moment. Why do I feel so long? The long one is kind of like going through a whole life. While talking, Nelliel wiped away the tear paper from the corner of her eyes. Senju Starry Night, thank you for allowing me to regain my whole life and make up for the regrets I had. My life is free of worries. In order to repay you, my life and soul from now on belong only to you. Senju Yoruichi. Zakienzao, as long as you need my help, even if you want me to die immediately, I am willing. Seeing the devout Nelliel, Tang Xinai nodded in satisfaction. I'm glad you have such determination, but I'm not willing to let you die. While speaking, Senju Yoruichi looked at Nelliel sincerely, and enjoyed this beautiful scene so much. Actually, I really need your help on one thing. Since you are willing to give up your life, you shouldn't give me a small request. When Senju Xinai spoke, his tone was very cautious, as if he was afraid that Nelliel would be unhappy. Take it easy, I won't be that overbearing. Chapter 284, Show me your hole. Senju Xinai was still asking Nelliel, but Nelliel nodded calmly and said, as long as it is Master Xinai's order, even if it means dying, I will not refuse. Hearing Nelliel's attitude, Senju Starry Night naturally doesn't have to worry about it. Since you have said so, then I will not be polite. At present, there is really a question that bothers me. Then what is the question? Nelliel blinked her big watery eyes innocently. Senju Xinai smiled and asked, I heard that you Menos Grand also have a void, just like Neutra just now. It's the first time I've seen such a magical thing with a void in his left eye. In the middle of speaking, Senju Kusanai looked Nelliel up and down, and asked curiously, I just looked for a long time, but I didn't find your hole at all. Miss Nelliel, can I see your hole? Hearing that Senju Starry Night wants to see 620's own virtual hole, Nelliel blushes for a while. Although there are things like virtual holes in every virtual body, the virtual holes produced by general virtual bodies are all located under the neck. However, when minnows gram devours each other, the virtual hole will produce corresponding changes. For example, Aranera middle daughter Arari's hole is on the left thigh, and Green Rika Jack's hole is in the abdomen. Nelliel, who is Vasto Lord, although the position of the empty hole does not deviate too much from the heart, but it just grows on the left breast. You must know that a girl still values her own image very much. Even Nelliel, who is Menno's Grand Vasto Lord, is no exception. Master Kusanai, my virtual hole is very ugly, can I not look at it? Senju Kusanai shook his head, don't call yourself ugly, in my eyes you are always the most beautiful. While speaking, Senju, Bbook, Kusanai was still looking up and down Nelliel. Of course, it's not that he doesn't know that Nelliel's hollow hole grows on her left breast, but he really can't figure out how that abyss-like hollow hole grows in such a soft Q-bullet position. You said just now that you would obey my request unconditionally, even at the cost of your life. Now I just want to see the void. The virtual hole is in every void, and it represents the incompleteness of the soul. I just made up for your regrets, which is equivalent to the king filling in your void. Can't I just want to see it now? Seeing that Senju Kusanai's expression is so serious, there are faint signs of anger. After a little hesitation, Nelliel finally agreed to Senju Kusanai's request. Accompanied by the slow left and right movements, the light green vest was gradually lifted, revealing a hollow hole the size of a bowl. Looking at the past through the virtual hole, there is really a special feeling. Master Kusanai, this is my empty hole. Senju Kusanai nodded slowly. I didn't expect that being a Menno's Grand would have voids, especially as a Vasto Lord. This is a collection of countless souls. But even if so many souls are combined, it will not be able to fill the void in my heart after all. Empty. Thinking of something like that, Senju Kusanai suddenly understood Nelliel's mood. It's no wonder Nelliel is so grateful to herself. You must know that once there is a void in your heart, it feels like an abyss black hole. It will become more and more empty as time goes by. The emptiness that desires to be satisfied is enough to swallow everything in the spiritual brain. Nelliel blushed and was about to cover her own void, but Senju Kusanai asked an unexpected question again. It's like this, Miss Nelliel, I see that when you returned to the blade, you turned into an antelope form that is half human and half beast. In this form, you should have 2 abdominal cavities, right? Nelliel nodded repeatedly. Senju Kusanai is right, the 4-legged antelope after returning to the blade does have 2 stomachs. Master Kusanai, after returning to the blade, I will indeed have 2 abdominal cavities, but why do you ask such a question? Facing Nelliel's confusion, Senju Kusanai explained, actually, I'm just curious, I just can't figure it out. If a half-human half-animal is pregnant, will the child be in the belly of a human or in the belly of a beast? In stomach. I thought the request to see the virtual hole was already weird enough, but I didn't expect Senju Kusanai to ask such a question in the follow-up. This is simply too heaven-defying. Master Kusanai, you are so unprincipled. This kind of question is so embarrassing. Senju Starry Night Ka, who found Nelliel to be awkward, confessed, I'm not a serious person at all. The reason why I saved you is to see if you can have children. That's the most important thing to me. If your void hole was in the same position as Tia Halibal, I wouldn't have saved you in the first place. Tia Halibal's void hole is the most outrageous position except for Zayla Poragran's. Nelliel was a little disappointed when she heard the words. It turns out that the reason why you are willing to save me is because you have other plans? Chapter 285, Void Night Palace. Although Tia has made some special decorations to hide the location of the virtual hole as much as possible, Nelliel, as the former third espada, knows the location of Tia's virtual hole best. Sister Tia is only because of a special location of Xudong, but she is still a very good person. Nelliel tried her best to say good things for Tia, but Senju Kusanai didn't care about it at all. Admittedly, Tia Haribal has a very nice body, but I'm not interested in a woman who can't have children. The meaning of Senju Starry Night is very clear, but Nelliel still wants to say something. Just when he was about to speak, Senju Kusanai chose to block it directly with his mouth. After a little taste, Senju Kusanai pushed Nelliel a little away, looked at the beautiful face, and smiled. It seems that you have entered the state, please return to the blade next. Although Senju Kusanai's tone is very calm, there is a feeling that cannot be violated. Nelliel bit her lip and hesitated for a while, but finally followed Genji Kusanai's intention to return to the calendar. Sing it, Gazelle Rider. A flash of red light flashed, and the humanoid Nelliel returned to its original posture. Senju Kusanai looked at Nelliel's real body in front of him, and smiled slightly. It seems that the destruction of the mask has a great impact. The original Vasto Lord is the closest existence to human beings. I didn't expect you to change back to the state of Aduches. I have to say that Nelliel, who has turned back into an antelope knight, still looks very cute. When I was young, I fantasize about the galloping and heroic appearance of riding a horse for countless times. Although there is no horse today, riding a cute antelope should be the same, right? Thinking of this, Senju Starry Night is no longer polite. This night, Senju Kusanai fulfilled his childhood wish of riding a horse. The recitation is in the virtual circle. The bright moon above the sky always hangs high above the head. Under the eternal night as bright as day, the bright moon suddenly glows red. Blood moon. It seems that Yuhabush's plan is about to be advanced, and the plan here will also be accelerated. With this in mind, Senju Kusanai took advantage of Rinnegan's natural hand strength and teleported directly to the gate of Xuai Palace. On the main hall inside, Aizen is sitting on the throne, looking at the other Espadas above the main hall as if looking down upon the crowd. The Reiatsu of the 5th Espada Noitra suddenly disappeared. Why did I not receive the information of the enemy's invasion? Could it be that my lovely Senju from the 5th Division did it? Aizen looked at Thousand Clame, and the latter replied immediately, Master Aizen, according to the report, before Noitra's Reiatsu disappeared, the original 3rd Espada, Nelliel's Reiatsu was detected. The answer is obvious. It's obviously Nelly who killed Noitra. After hearing the news, the other Espadas present basically looked calm. Only Szayeloporo's expression moved slightly. How is this possible? Me and Noitra have already shattered Nelliel's mask. In theory, she should degenerate into a Juches. She can't defeat Noitra. Facing Szayeloporo's will, Thousand Clame asked in a cold tone, 8th Espada, Szayeloporo, I need to remind you of one thing, that is, you are solely responsible for Xuai's Hong intelligence system. Ask for flowers. In other words, this information was provided to me by the intelligence system that you are faintly proud of. Thousand Clame held the information briefing sheet in his hand, and after Szayeloporo read it, his expression became very embarrassed. He is still very confident in his intelligence system. This time, he really didn't expect that Nelliel could kill Noitra. You must know that the reason why they didn't kill Nelliel directly was because they wanted to see how Nelliel's arrogant tsundere turned into a weak chicken begging for mercy. However, before the good show had time to watch, Noitra was directly counter-killed. You must know that Aizen-sama is not opposed to his subordinates killing each other. If Nelliel finds him, he will end up like Noitra. Thinking of this, Szayeloporo couldn't help but tremble. You must know that the sneak attack on Nelliel was done by him and Nutara together. If Aizen-sama lets Nelliel go, then his fate will be miserable. If you want to avoid this situation, you still have to find a way on your own. Aizen didn't care about Szayeloporo's thoughts at all. After hearing the information, Aizen had a thoughtful expression at this moment, as if he had developed a strong interest in Nelliel. After Urankar was destroyed, he was able to defeat Nutara. It seems that the original 3rd Espada is still strong. Thousand, you go and bring Nelliel here and let her temporarily take the place of Nutara's 5th Espada. As you order, Master Aizen. After Thousand Clame went down, Aizen looked at Yakimaru Jin. Silver, come to Mundo with us. Is the Senju-san seat still missing, san? Chapter 286, Showdown. I want to unify Mundo. With a trademark smirk on Yakimaru Jin's face, he spit out, it seems that the 3 Senju seats are really talented at hide and seek. So far, the whereabouts of the 3 seats of Senju have not been found. However, before Yakimaru Jin finished speaking, Tate Hoshio appeared in front of Aizen. Almost at the same time, the blood moon in the sky suddenly became weirder. Master Aizen, I heard that you are still looking for me. The voice of Senju Kusanai suddenly came from above the hall, even closer to the center than anyone else. Hearing such a voice, almost everyone was taken aback. After recovering from the 290, there was a round of scolding and ridicule. Who are you? Dare to break into the Void Night Palace? I think you are impatient. Everyone, you also said something to me, as if they really wanted to put Senju Kusanai to death. However, how could Senju Kusanai honestly wait for others to attack him? Without any hesitation, Senju Kusanai faced the attacking force coming from all directions, and directly used the ability of the space system to absorb all those people into the different space. Among the group of people facing Senju Starry Night, the defense team in charge of the security force immediately became ashamed. Master Aizen killed decisively, and he accidentally let someone break into him this time. In the eyes of Master Aizen, such dereliction of duty is basically no different from a useless person. There is only one end for useless people, and that is death. Thinking of this, the guards rushed directly to control the restless power on Senju Kusanai. The soldiers finally breathed a sigh of relief. Before they had time to celebrate, they directly discovered that the terrain in front of them had changed. What's the situation? After a while, Senju Kusanai broke free from everyone's control and came in front of Aizen. Aizen found out that it was the Senju Starry Night that he had just mentioned. His expression was very calm, and there seemed to be no change. It turned out to be the 3rd seat of Senju. It has been a long time since we just crossed. Why didn't you come to Xuai Palace during this time? I hope to hear a reasonable explanation, because I appreciate your talent, and I don't want to kill you myself. It is indeed the ceiling of the villain's pretentious world, and Aizen's pretentious posture is quite a teacher. However, Senju Starry Night feels very ridiculous. What Aizen said just now seemed to mean that he could kill me at any time. Senju Kusanai just laughed angrily. Although Aizen is now holding SoKyoku, it is still very difficult to threaten him with his strength. He can even instantly kill Aizen whenever he wants. However, the current Senju Starry Night really hasn't played enough, so I thought of a rhetoric. When I went through the world transmitting gate, a series of shocks suddenly occurred, and I regained consciousness again. I have been separated from you, Master Aizen. Since Senju Kusanai's explanation was reasonable, Aizen didn't ask too much. However, Aizen's purpose is to create Wang Jian, and no accidents are allowed in this matter. Thinking of this, Aizen smiled coldly. Senju Kusanai, I have to say that you are really smart, but I know you are just pretending. Ming people don't speak dark words. There should be some serious reason why you lurk by my side. Tell me, what kind of interests are involved that can make a layman like you fight against me? Aizen's tone of voice was very pretentious. Kian Kusanai wanted to rush over to beat someone immediately after hearing it. However, at this moment, Senju Kusanai also has a certain state of mind. Facing Aizen's pretense, Senju Kusanai smiled coldly. Master Aizen, since you've already said that, I'd better tell the truth. I came to Mundo for one purpose. It's about unifying the power of Mundo and making it work for me. Hearing what Senju Kusanai said, all the Arancars, big and small, in the hall laughed, followed by a burst of ridicule. It's hilarious. Do you think you are a god? If you want to unify Mundo, we will definitely listen to you. Do you know how big Mundo is? Even Master Aizen can't settle easily. It's really shameless for you to say such things casually. The second Espada, the king of the virtual circle before Aizen, looked very angry at the moment. You mortals, one or two, all want to shake the gods. 1.3 Unforgivable. Unforgivable. Baragon was about to attack Senju Kusanai, but at this moment Thousand Kaname suddenly stood up. Senju Starry Night, I heard that you want to unify the entire Mundo. You must know that Mundo is now controlled by Master Aizen. Are you going to disobey Aizen-sama? Senju Star Yoruichi replied with a natural expression. Is there anything wrong? Unifying Mundo depends on strength. If I can defeat Aizen, then I am naturally qualified to rule Mundo. After hearing Senju Starry Night's natural tone, Thousand Kaname was about to explode with rage. Chapter 287, If you are killed, you will die. Senju Starry Night, you not only slander Aizen-sama with outrageous words, but I, Thousand Kaname, will never let you go. Facing the crazy Thousand Kaname, Senju Kusanai shook his head secretly. Captain Thousand, I really don't understand why you follow Aizen SoKyoku. The person you like was killed, and I understand that you want revenge. Yet you should not follow Aizen. Facing Senju Kusanai's negation of himself, Thousand Kaname seemed very resistant. Stop making sarcastic remarks. Wang is so kind and excellent. Why does such a person have to die? Senju Kusanai was a little speechless. Does this kind of question still need to be asked? If you are killed, you will die. Is there any reason for this? Speaking of this, Senju Kusanai looked at Thousand Kaname impatiently. Wang is obviously a married man, but you are still entangled with her. Don't you think your behavior is very dirty? Hearing these words from Senju Starry Night, Thousand Kaname's emotions became more emotional. Shut up. I won't allow you to slander Wang. However, Thousand Kaname's threats did not affect Senju Starry Night. Seeing the almost crazy Thousand Kaname, Senju Kusanai continued to question. You should know who the murderer who killed Songo is. But you didn't choose to take revenge. If this is the case, what qualifications do you have to stand here and speak out? No. Revenge is not the world Wang hopes for. I can't do anything to disappoint her. Senju Kusanai smiled coldly, and continued to ask, wouldn't Wang be disappointed by following Aizen to rebel together? You can obviously avenge Wang, but you have been brazenly commenting on hatred itself. I thought you jumped out of the obsession of ordinary people, but you wanted to follow Aizen to rebel. Don't you think your behavior is ridiculous? Hearing this, Thousand Kaname became very mad. You don't know me at all, so why do you judge me? That's right, I followed Master Aizen willingly, and I voluntarily gave up revenge, just because I have more important things to do. Today, I, Thousand Kaname, must eradicate you for Master Aizen. Thousand Kaname screamed hysterically, and the hand holding Zanpei Kuto began to tremble slightly. Wow, Suzumushi. With Shikai activated, Thousand Kaname performed Suzumushi 2, Suzumushi Type 2. Red Migratory Locust. Accompanied by the release of Reiatsu, the Zanpei Kuto instantly produced countless steel needle blades, and under the control of Thousand Kaname, the overwhelming blade rain instantly slanted towards Senju Kusanai's position. However, in the face of Thousand Kaname's attack to such a degree, Senju Kusanai just used the ability in Rinnegan lightly, transferring all these seemingly densely packed sharp blades to a different space. Seeing that his attack ended silently, Thousand Kaname couldn't figure it out. Why is my attack invalid? It's like opening your eyes to see what's happening in front of you. Why my attack doesn't work at all? Why is this? Senju Kusanai stood confidently beside Thousand Kaname, and said coldly, if you have any abilities, just choose them. Feeling the calmness of the Senju Starry Night, Thousand Clame broke the defense instantly. Senju Starry Night, how dare you look down on me? It seems that I can't forgive you this time. Bankai. Suzumushi final form middle dot Yama cricket. Before the words fell, Thousand Clame directly changed the Suzumushi in the initial state into the Suzumushi final form Yama cricket in the solved state. The surroundings are instantly covered by a pitch black field. But anyone who enters this field will definitely be stripped of their 5 senses. Satisfied, Thousand Clame explained excitedly, my Bankai can block people's sight, hearing, smell, and even intuition. If a person has no perception, he will sink into eternal fear. But before the words fell, Senju Sinai appeared again, and asked coldly, what's the use of that? Thousand Clame obviously didn't understand what Senju Star 893 said. Senju Star Night healed and said again, yes, your Bankai ability is really interesting. But what's the use of it? Senju Sinai just threw a sage art raising gun casually, and the incomparably explosive sound resounded instantly. Because Thousand Clame is a blind person, his ears will be more sensitive, and he came here immediately by listening to the sound. However, at this moment, Senju Sinai had no intention of continuing to play, so he directly formed a seal and used the magic chakra to create a terrifying noise. At this moment, Thousand Clame, the whole person is like a dog in the water. Originally, this matter was intended to be used in the future, but Senju Starry Night forced out Thousand Clame's nirvana. Senju Starry Night, I didn't expect your methods to be so strong. But all of them are in vain. In that case, let me show you my true strength. Suzumushi Hyakushiki Kuga cricket. Accompanied by a low growl, Thousand Clame directly displayed the unique returning blade. Chapter 288, Planetary Devastation. Suzumushi Bshi, Kuangjia cricket. This trick is Bankai after Thousand Clame has integrated Rankar's ability, and it is more like a returning blade form to be precise. From the appearance point of view, it has already shown some characteristics of being virtual. I can really see. Ah ha 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 ha. Thousand Clame's expression was almost crazy, while Kianzi Sinai looked at Thousand Clame with a little pity. Although your eyes can see it, your heart can't see it. You are obviously a poor person, but sometimes this kind of person doesn't deserve sympathy. Senju Sinai looked at Thousand Clame sternly, with a disdainful smile on the corner of his mouth. It seems that I need to show you what real strength is. Before the words fell, Senju Sinai switched directly to the purple 6 Jade Rinnegan mode, and stretched out his hand to easily point at the position of Thousand Clame. Sage Art. Planetary Devastation. With the surge of 6 Paths Sage Art Chakra, everyone present was dumbfounded. The terrifying chakra erupted in an instant, and the power of 6 Paths instantly condensed into a black ball the size of a projectile, which instantly hit Thousand Clame in the returning blade state. Immediately afterwards, a pitch-black world enveloped it, and a suction force struck instantly. The suction like a black hole crazily tore apart the surrounding space, and a huge suction gathered all the surrounding gravel and rubble together. Thousand Clame, who was at the center of the black ball, was completely stunned. What kind of ability is this? Why can't I move? Impossible. This is impossible. The power that Aizen-sama's gave me cannot be so weak. During the struggle, Thousand Clame directly vibrated the insect's wings, and the continuous ultrasonic waves spread wirelessly in all directions, and the power was actually comparable to that of Zero. 9 faces killing each other. Accompanied by a powerful Reiatsu, the surrounding crushed stones were instantly reduced to powder when exposed to this powerful ultrasonic wave. However, in the next second, under the action of the planetary devastation, the shattered slag powder gathered again, still covering the black ball. How can this be? My mighty Reiatsu can't shake an inch. Illusion. It must be an illusion. It is impossible for such a powerful force to exist in the world. I must have been under an illusion. Everything around me is fake. However, even though Thousand Clame shouted in his mouth, he didn't stop resisting. Kill. 9 faces killing each other. King Zero. Zero Zero. All kinds of green Reiatsu filled the whole black ball in an instant, but the outside world didn't know what happened inside. Such an attack alone would not be able to break through the seal of the planetary devastation. Baragan, who was traveling with Thousand Clame, also showed a very interested expression, looking at the planetary devastation created by Starry Night with his one eye up. Such a powerful force, although close to Reiatsu, are 2 completely different forms. Interesting, really interesting. If it is you, it seems that it is not completely hopeless. While speaking, Baragan looked at Aizen's position. You must know that the reason why he pretends to submit to Aizen now is to find an opportunity to kill with one blow. If Senju Sinai can do it for him, that would be the best. You must know that Aizen's strongest ability is illusion, so the villain will not accompany me to make a move. Baragan snorted coldly with disdain. However, he misjudged Aizen's strength. You must know that the reason why Aizen's ability is so powerful is not the hypnosis ability of Zanpei Kuto Kyoku Suigetsu, but the absolutely terrifying Reiatsu. As Reiatsu's strongest existence among the 5 special forces, Aizen's strength is not blown out. At this moment, Aizen is also looking at the black sphere with an interesting face. The ability to form asteroids of this size in just a fraction of a second is truly intriguing. Although Aizen was still feeling emotional, he didn't intend to make a move. Yakimarujin on the side is a 25-year-old boy, just looking for an opportunity to sneak attack Aizen. Thousand Clame went beyond his means to find bad luck, so he was naturally watching for fun. When everything returned to calm, the ball produced by the planetary devastation was already comparable to the moon above the sky of the Void Palace. Nelliel was also dumbfounded. It was she who tried desperately to protect Senju Kusanai from being implicated, for fear that she would accidentally hurt them, Wang's. However, seeing the scene in front of her, Nelliel realized how outrageously wrong she was. Accidental injury? Totally impossible. Compared with Senju Starry Night, her strength is nothing like cloud and mud. A moon was created between raising his hand. This ability is simply heaven. After the turmoil just now, Senju Kusanai looked at Aizen lightly. Captain Aizen, do you still think I'm joking? Facing Senju Starry Night's provocation, Aizen didn't fluctuate at all, still smiling and talking peacefully. It seems that Senju is also very capable. Let me admit that you are not joking. Chapter 289, The Real Controller. Aizen looked at Senju Kusanai calmly, and continued, maybe I should put it another way. I believe you really want to unify a commando. I admit that you are really courageous, and your ideals are also great. But how do you realize this impossible dream? Your ability should be sealing technique. Don't you think that if you can create such a small planet, you can also seal me? Perhaps I should give you a piece of advice. You are not the only one who can use the sealing technique. Before the words fell, Aizen pulled out Zanpei Kuto, and slashed through the void. Then a powerful Reiatsu instantly permeated the entire Xuai Palace. Following the direction Aizen pointed, everyone looked surprised. What's going on here? 3 moons appeared in the sky. As expected of Aizen's armor, you can display exactly the same skill just by looking at it. Stinky boy, the sealing technique you are proud of 823 is not worth mentioning in front of Master Aizen. Your killing seal technique, we Master Aizen can use it at will just by looking at it. Everyone whispered to each other, all with surprised expressions on their faces. Senju Starry Night is a bit foggy. Following the direction of everyone's eyes, Senju Starry Night can only see 2 moons. One is the original moon of Xuai Palace, and the other is an asteroid created by Wang Zixing using planetary devastation. However, no shadow of the 3rd moon was found. After pondering for a moment, Senju Kusanai also guessed the reason for the first time. Kyoku Suigetsu. It seems that Aizen activated Kyoku Suigetsu's ability. It is estimated that the original idea was just to shock Senju Starry Night psychologically. However, what Aizen didn't expect was that Senju Kusanai had successfully touched the blade of Kyoku Suigetsu by using illusion as early as the 5th team of Soul Society. In other words, Kyoku Suigetsu's abilities are already ineffective against Senju Starry Night. But Aizen doesn't know this, and still thinks that Senju Starry Night got his own hypnosis. Seeing everyone's surprised expressions, Aizen nodded in relief. However, in the eyes looking at Senju Kusanai, there is still the appearance of the villain BQSS who is full of confidence and has a plan in his chest. Senju Starry Night, your proud skills can't pose a threat to me at all. For the sake of you being my former subordinate, I will give you a chance to reform yourself. As long as you are willing to kneel down and beg for mercy and swear allegiance to me, I can spare your life. If you want, I can let you replace Thousand Clame and serve me loyally. Senju Kusanai looked up at the non-existent moon, feeling very funny in his heart. It turned out that when I was not hypnosis, watching the scene of Aizen pretending to be B would have such a funny and humorous effect. This is really the first time I felt it. Not only does it remind Senju Starry Night of the Karakura town battle scene. Hitsugaya Toshiro, Aizen hypnosis at the time, pierced Hinamori Momo, who was transformed into indigo, dye, in full view. Everyone also thought that Hitsugaya succeeded in killing Aizen in seconds, but when he was about to celebrate, he was woken up by Kurosaki Yakugo. At that time, Senju Starry Night couldn't understand Kurosaki Yakugo's speechlessness at that time. However, at this moment, after experiencing it personally, I realized how funny the scene was at that time. Senju Starry Night, you don't have much time to think about it. You must know that our current situation will change at any time. My goal is not commando, and I won't stay here for too long. If Senju has a decision in his mind, I advise you to speak up as soon as possible. Do you want to be an enemy of my Aizen, or decide to be my Aizen's subordinate? I believe that you, as a smart person, shouldn't be difficult to choose. Having said that, Aizen looked confidently at the position of Senju Starry Night. Because he understands the character of Senju Starry Night, it can be said that from the first meeting, Senju Kusanai's character has a lot of similarities with himself. This is also the reason why Aizen will be the first to win over. However, Since Senju Starry Night's character is felt, Aizen naturally knows that this person is not easy to win over, and he is not willing to submit to others. So as early as the very beginning, complete hypnosis was cast on Senju Starry Night. It's just that he didn't expect that Senju Starry Night's Rinnegan is also a very powerful illusion. Before the unsuccessful hypnosis, his Kyoku Suigetsu skills had been given by Senju Starry Night. Aizen, I have to admit your ability to pretend to be B. But have you ever thought about one thing? That is to say, is there such a possibility? So far, what you have done, will it be controlled by me? You're so smug that you control Urahara Kisuke and let Urahara Kisuke make Hogyoku for you. You are self-righteous in carrying out the mask plan in the Gotai 13th Division, and you are self-righteous and feel that you have teased so many captain and vice-captain level combat power. Chapter 290, Everything is under control. Senju Star Yoruichi looked at Aizen while talking. At this moment, Aizen is also silent, with a thoughtful expression. Considering Senju Kusanai's age, he shouldn't have known his plan 100 years ago at all. However, he knows that Urahara Kisuke has fallen into his trap, and he even knows the truth about how the captain became a mask 100 years ago. Aizen finally felt something out of control at this moment. Interesting. Indeed interesting. I didn't expect you, Senju-sensei, to be an expert in the game. However, knowing all this, what can you do? I admire your courage, but in terms of ability. Before Aizen finished speaking, Hand Kusanai planned him with a look of contempt. Do you think your complete hypnosis can solve all problems? Since when did you rely on the ability of hypnosis? Are you complacent about it? Kurosaki Yakugo captures Hogyoku for you, controlling other people's feelings step by step. Isn't it great? Do you think you can really control the world? Facing Senju Star Yoruichi's series of questions, Aizen seemed to feel some strange feelings in his heart, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. So I continued to smile with complete control. Senju 3 seats, it is undeniable that I appreciate your mentality. Being able to say what you just said, this calmness has exceeded my expectations. That's right, I was the one who made Hogyoku using Urahara Kisuke, and I was the one who led Kurosaki Yakugo to Bipolar Hill, and I guided them step by step. That's obvious. The reason why I can do all these things is because I have this ability. And you, Senju-sensei, you seem to have seen my extraordinary ability. But what does that mean? Even if you already know that my ability is far beyond ordinary people, you still can't deal with it, isn't it? You can only watch my plan step by step, but you can do nothing. Isn't this a pain? Seeing Aizen pretending to be B, Senju Kusanai felt so embarrassed. Captain Aizen, how do you know that I can't do anything about you? I know you now have Hogyoku, which is equivalent to an extra layer of super speed healing talent. And your Reiatsu is the strongest in the world. At the end of the day, the battle between you Shinigami and Hollow is, in the final analysis, the battle of Reiatsu. Below the huge Reiatsu gap, anything is useless. Hearing Senju Kusanai compliment him so much, Aizen was very satisfied. However, at this moment, Senju Starry Night has changed his style of painting, with a slight sarcasm on his expression. What do you think is a possibility? The original is not a Shinigami, nor is it a Hollow, and it is not a Quincy Master. My abilities don't require Reiatsu, so your Reiatsu doesn't have any advantage over me. Aizen didn't seem to understand the meaning of Senju Starry Night, but at this moment Senju Starry Night was referring to the planetary devastation above the sky. As I said, my abilities don't require Reiatsu to fight, and your Reiatsu is useless against me. Even the complete hypnosis that you are proud of has no effect on me. Hearing Senju Kusanai mentioned complete hypnosis, Aizen frowned slightly. This was the first time he changed his expression, and finally it was no longer that calm and indifferent face. Apparently, Aizen didn't think that his abilities would be seen through by Senju Kusanai. Asking for flowers. Since the ability is seen through by the opponent, this means that the risk of continuing to use the ability will also increase, because the other party is very likely to have mastered the method of cracking his own ability. Thinking of this, Aizen couldn't help but smile. Senju 3 seats, it seems that I really underestimated you this time. When did you see through my abilities? Is there a detail I haven't noticed? It seems that I am really careless. Aizen laughed at himself. But Senju Kusanai was surprised. Captain Aizen, I don't think you have misunderstood me. Then, I also have a question I want to ask you. Do you think I can see through your tricks only after you have leaked the flaw yourself? If I said, I knew your ability was complete hypnosis from the very beginning. In this way, won't it be easier for you to understand the current situation? As the best boss in the 3 worlds, Aizen fell into a disadvantage in the B field for the first time. So you knew my history from the very beginning? Although Aizen's expression is still pretending to be calm, but the whole person is a little unnatural. If Senju Star Yoruichi knew his ability from the beginning, then he is likely to be controlled by Senju Star Night for so long. As he Aizen layout design Kurosaki Yakugo General. Seeing Aizen's expression now, Senju Kusanai finally smiled. Very well, it seems that you have realized the seriousness of the problem. That's right. The reason why you were able to successfully bring Hogyoku out of the Soul Society was because of my Chapter 291, Unexpected Harvest. With Aizen's ingenuity, He can naturally understand what Senju Kusanai said. Only if you bring Hogyoku out of the Soul Society, then I can get Hogyoku in a legitimate way. After Senju Kusanai finished speaking, he looked at Aizen with disdain. As if feeling the contempt in Senju's starry eyes, Aizen's mentality finally changed. Senju Starry Night, stop being smart. You think you're really in control of everything? Actually, what you can see with your eyes is only from the perspective of a frog at the bottom. My goal is far above Hogyoku, and that height is absolutely beyond your reach. No. February 27th should judge my great cause with your short-sighted eyes. When Aizen spoke, his breathing fluctuated obviously. It seems to be on the verge of breaking the defense. At the same time, Yakai Marujin's eyes lit up. He has followed Aizen for so many years, and this is the first time he saw Aizen have such a groggy expression. It seems that the Senju 3 seats seem very interesting. But at this moment, Baragan is also a attitude of watching the show with a cold eye. Recalling Aizen's arrogant appearance back then, Beilagang was so angry that he exploded on the spot. Unexpectedly, Aizen, who is so high and proud of everything, will fall into the hands of a young man. Seeing it in his eyes, Baragan was naturally happy in his heart. However, at this moment, Aizen adjusted his state immediately because he thinks he still has the nirvana of Kyoku Suigetsu. Senju 3 seats, I have to admit, I really underestimated your ability. Maybe you really saw through my Kyoku Suigetsu's ability, or maybe you have already cracked my Kyoku Suigetsu. But so what? However, don't you think that as long as I crack my Zanpakuto's Kuto's ability, I won't be affected by complete hypnosis? If you can achieve this level, will you be sure of victory? Then let's put it another way. Can I think that the reason why you think you can win is due to the condition of being immune to my complete hypnosis? When Aizen spoke, his expression became more and more confident, and there was even a sneer of disdain on the corner of his mouth. Senju 3 seats, let's go back to the original question. Are you really sure you cannot be affected by my complete hypnosis? Have you really figured out the situation? Seeing Aizen's expression, Senju Kusanai became more sure. This is the proper King Bee. It's also too much to pretend. Captain Aizen, I think you are the one who can't see the situation clearly. Yes, I have indeed cracked your complete hypnosis. But judging from what you just said, it seems that there are other nirvana. If I didn't guess wrong, could it be Bankai? Although I don't know your Bankai ability for the time being, I can see how confident you are. It seems to be able to strengthen the ability of complete hypnosis, or absolute hypnosis is more appropriate. That is to say, the hypnosis ability that can break the Shikai state will be invalidated, and it will be replaced by the absolute hypnosis state. You probably think that your hypnosis ability can completely hypnosis me, so you are so confident, right? Senju Kusanai analyzed Aizen's ability, but Aizen did not show panic. That's right. Senju Kusanai is indeed a respectable opponent. Yes, you guessed very accurately. However, although you can guess my ability, how should you deal with it? While talking, Aizen has already pointed the Zanpakuto in his hand to Senju Starry Night. Senju Starry Night, because you know me so well, I will reluctantly cast Bankai once, so that you should have a clearer understanding of the gap between us. 17. After Aizen said this sentence, everyone present was in a state of nervousness. Is it finally Bankai? The Shikai of this monster is already so powerful, I don't know what the effect will be if it is solved. Baragan squinted his one eye, still looking like he was watching a good show. At this moment, Yakai Marujin is also in a complicated mood. After so many years of lurking, although he also knows Aizen Shikai's cracking method, but after all, he is not clear about Bankai's ability. Unexpectedly, on a day like today, I would be lucky enough to see Aizen's Bankai. This is really a windfall. Everyone looked at Aizen's Bankai with their own thoughts. Bankai. So it up. Bankai's 2.7 spell was only halfway through when Aizen stopped suddenly, because he suddenly found that he had forgotten Bankai's spell. Senju 3 seats. Is this also your ability? Your ability is to strip Bankai. Aizen panicked again. He didn't expect the Senju Starry Night in front of him to be able to seal his Bankai. Know that this is something that requires pinning him on Reiatsu, counting the entire Soul Society, and even those monsters in the Soul King Palace. Few people can do it. Seeing Aizen's flustered expression, Senju Kusanai actually smiled. Chapter 292, Fooled Aizen into a lame. Capturing Bankai? Not at all. This is a kind of illusion. Let me call it an enhanced version of Tsukuyomi. Senju Kusanai patiently explained his illusion just now. Uchiha Itachi once used this method to transfer Shishui's eyes to the crow, and when fighting Naruto, use illusion to seal in Naruto's body. And the trigger condition for this illusion is to see Sasuke's eyes again, because according to Uchiha Itachi's plan, he will die in a battle with his younger brother Sasuke, and his eyes will naturally be transplanted to Sasuke. With Naruto's character, he will never give up on Sasuke. When he finds Sasuke again, as long as you see Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan, the illusion will work. I have to say that Uchiha Itachi is definitely an illusion genius. But this method is now used by Senju Kusanai to deal with Aizen. Seeing Aizen's dull expression, Genji Kusanai smiled coldly. 22. Is it a surprise? Is it a surprise? When you decided to use Bankai, you actually fell into my trick. Because my Tsukuyomi trigger is your Bankai. That is to say, once you perform Bankai, it will trigger my illusion, thus forgetting your own Bankai. After hearing Senju Kusanai's explanation, Aizen realized the horror of the man in front of him. That is to say, you already calculated that I would carry out Bankai. Is it all in your calculations? Aizen couldn't believe his eyes. How could there be such a terrifying existence in the world? It is understandable if Urahara Kisuke has such a smart brain and can get along with such a clever strategy. Unexpectedly, such a young Senju Kusanai can play around with himself. Aizen suddenly began to doubt his ability. Seeing Aizen's life-doubting expression, Senju Kusanai did not intend to let him go. After raising eyebrows and eyes slightly, Senju Kusanai smiled slightly. Captain Aizen, do you still remember what I just said? You think you control everything about Soul Society. You think you control what Kurosaki Yakugo does. Actually, when you design others, how do you know that others have not designed you? It can be said that everything you have done so far is under my careful arrangement, including Urahara Kisuke made Hogyoku 100 years ago, or the masked army at that time, and even your idea of cultivating Kurosaki Yakugo later, all because of my illusion. You know, you have grown to the present level under my illusion. Do you understand me when I say that? Hearing the words of Senju Kusanai, Aizen went completely crazy. No, this is impossible. How can this be true? If it's all an illusion, then what's the point of me doing it all? Aizen's roar resounded throughout the Void Night Palace. He really believed Senju Kusanai's words from the bottom of his heart. However, everything Senju Kusanai said just now is all nonsense. You must know that Senju Starry Night was not born 100 years ago, so there is no way to intervene in Aizen's conspiracy. The reason why he said that was to break the house for Aizen. Turns out Senju Starry Night really did. If I remember correctly, the only time Aizen broke the defense was after Kurosaki Yakugo mastered Yuzuki and evolved into a more advanced existence than him. Unexpectedly, this time Aizen even broke the defense several times under the attack of Senju Kusanai. This is really interesting. Looking at Aizen's hysterical expression at this moment, Baragon couldn't help but smile. Aizen, I didn't expect you to have today, did you? Illusion is just a child's trick. It's okay to be mean and shameless. It doesn't improve your own strength at all. You Aizen are just an insignificant ant. Why would you dare to despise me, a real god? Ha 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 ha. Hands. I'm Baragon having a blast. Aizen was already on the verge of breaking the house at 510. Hearing Baragon's ridicule, Aizen couldn't hold back anymore. Senju Starry Night. So what if you can break through my hypnosis? Shinigami's battle is ultimately Reiatsu's battle, and with Hogyoku's blessing, my Reiatsu is invincible. What are you relying on to compete with me? Although you can crack my complete hypnosis, do you have the ability to surpass me in strength? Facing Aizen's provocation, Senju Kusanai waved his hand indifferently. It seems that I never said that I would suppress you on Reiatsu. Did I? Actually I don't need to beat you at all, because you will be willing to be my Senju Starry Night's slave right away from the bottom of your heart. I really can't imagine such a scene. The captain of the 5th division of the 13th division of Gaute. Later, it was the existence that dominated Commando. Such a tyrannical person wants to be my slave. I really don't know how this feeling will be. Chapter 293, Let me transform you. Hearing Senju Kusanai said that he wanted to be his slave, Aizen also laughed. Ridiculous. Extremely ridiculous. You know, even without Zanpei Kuto's complete hypnosis, it's not easy for you to defeat me. As I just said, my Reiatsu is the strongest existence in Soul Society. As long as I am willing, I can turn you into powder with just raising my hand. While speaking, Aizen pointed his fingers at the location of Senju Starry Night, and said in a low voice, the turbid coat of arms reveals faintly the unruly and arrogant talent. The tide negation paralysis momentary hinders the eternal sleep. The crawling iron princess, the clay puppet that keeps mutilating itself, combine, rebound, and extend to the ground. Know your own powerlessness. 90 of Hado, Black Coffin. 90 of Hado, Black Coffin. With the sound of the spell, the black wall-shaped cuboid traps the opponent, and countless shadow blades stab the opponent. Senju Kusanai only felt that the shadows of swords and swords around him had turned into a dark coffin. You must know that Aizen can still use this trick Kaido to easily defeat Komamura Sajin even if he abandons the spell. You must know that Komamura Sajin is also a captain-level combat power. But even so, he still cannot break free from the shackles of this black coffin. It is enough to see the horror of its strength. Feeling the black coffin attacking from around, Senju Kusanai unhurriedly opened the red 6-hook Jade Rinnegan. Heavenly power. With one trick of shifting shape, Senju Kusanai's whole body also escaped into another world. The powerful black coffin flashed past, but it didn't have any impact on Senju Starry Night. Seeing that he cast Hado of 90, he didn't even hurt a single hair of Senju Kusanai. Aizen was finally hit hard at this moment. Impossible tilde. This is impossible. How can there be anyone in the world stronger than me? Aizen SoKyoku. Aizen frantically denied what had just happened before his eyes. It's you, Senju Starry Night. It was your appearance that broke my plan. I'm going to make you pay. Before the words fell, Aizen SoKyoku concentrated again and muttered, Hado no 99, 5 swirling dragons of destruction. With the appearance of Hado 95, the giant dragon-like Reiatsu attacks and destroys everything within the spell's range. When Hado is released, the ground around him shatters. An extremely powerful coercion swept across the entire Xuei Palace in an instant. Only now did Baragon realize how wrong he was. At the beginning, he even thought that Aizen was only relying on illusion, but he didn't expect to be able to erupt such a powerful and invincible Reiatsu. Relying solely on his own Hado's strength, he was able to exert such tyrannical power. At this moment, Senju Kusanai finally realized the true power of Aizen. Thinking of this, Kienki and Kusanai suddenly felt that it was a pity that Aizen died. Might as well use it for me. As we all know, Aizen's ability is very powerful, and this has been verified just now. If I can use Shizui's illusion to directly change Aizen's subconscious, wouldn't I have a very reliable subordinate? Thinking of this, Senju Starry Night appeared directly in front of Aizen again. Seeing Senju Starry Night intact, even Aizen was very puzzled. How can this be? My Hado is powerful. You have hit 2 of my Hado one after another. Why can you persist until now? Senju Kusanai naturally entered the void and escaped the attack just now by hiding in another world. However, Aizen doesn't know anything about these things. Captain Aizen, I'm here to explain so much to you now. I'm afraid you won't be able to listen to it at all. Whether it's beating you or convincing you, it must be more difficult. Then there is no other way to do this, and I can only transform you. Quien Meluo, Senju Kusanai directly mobilized Lagua Rinnegan's state. The Rinnegan in this state can perform ninjutsu similar to Uekai Hashizui that changes the subconscious mind of the human body. And Senju Starry Night's goal is also very clear. Just need to use this trick of illusion on Aizen, then it can have an extra layer of protection on the subconscious level. Considering Senju Starry Night, Aizen still sneered, looking at your pensive appearance. Do you already regret being my enemy? If you are willing to obey my orders, then I, Aizen, am willing to rule the main world with you. Zhao. Seeing that his own Hado was completely ineffective against Senju Starry Night, Aizen also temporarily changed his method. Since there is no way to suppress it, there is only one way left. Senju Starry Night, you are very strong, not even weaker than me. However, you have to know that things in the world are often beyond your control. You might as well surrender to me, and I'll give you a whole new world. Seeing Aizen show off his words, Senju Kusanai felt very disdainful. As I said, I don't need to submit to you, nor do I need your allegiance. Senju Starry Night can transform your mind. Chapter 294, You Come to Be King B. Senju Kusanai has really had enough of the fallacies of those villains. You can obviously enjoy the joy of life. Why do you have to destroy the world? Blackening a bit to, Uekai Hamadara, including the current Aizen, one or two all have this idea. Aizen, let me tell you a very simple and obvious truth. Your goals are not ambitious. On the contrary, your idea is very stupid. Maybe you think the world is unfair, maybe you really want to change the status quo. However, what you should do is to use your own efforts to change the world and make the world obey the rules you make. It is the consciousness that the strong should have. If you think the world is unfair, you should change the world, not destroy it. And I have no ambitions. I don't want to change the world. I just want to live the life I like. So, what qualifications do you have, or what qualifications do you Aizen SoKyoku rely on to destroy the world I live in? 867 Senju Star Yoruichi approached Aizen while talking. If it was changed to before, Aizen would definitely not bother to explain, because he always believed that the absolute suppression of the Emperor of Power was everything he pursued. The weak are only worthy of obeying the orders of the strong. But now it is different. His proud Reiatsu has no advantage at all in front of Senju Starry Night. Facing the approaching Senju Starry Night step by step, Aizen finally felt a sense of fear at this moment. Hateful. My Hogyoku hasn't had time to evolve yet. Why is this world so cruel to me? Facing Aizen's hysterical complaint, Senju Kusanai smiled slightly. Are you wondering why Hogyoku hasn't evolved yet? Hogyoku's power is indeed beyond the existence of this world. Even in higher dimensions, CCFF is an existence with superpower. However, if you want to control Hogyoku, you must also have super strength. Otherwise Hogyoku will never obey a weak person. If you must ask why Hogyoku hasn't evolved yet, then I think there is only one most important reason. You, Aizen, are weak. Senju Kusanai said word by word. Aizen's expression went crazy after listening. The weak? Aizen, are weak? Exclamation mark. This is impossible. In the entire Soul Society, there are only a handful of people who can beat me in Reiatsu. How could I be weak? Maybe you don't know yet? Actually, the 13th squad of Gauta the Soul Society Sairaita is also under my control. It's useless no matter how powerful Gauta 13th Division is. It's really ridiculous that the 13th Division Gauta, which is so heaven-defying in fighting power, is controlled by Room 46. Facing Aizen's hysteria, Kienki Yoruichi's face is indifferent. Captain Aizen, you haven't noticed it yet, have you? You just said a lot to me, just to prove to me that you are capable. But why are you proving this to me? Can I understand that you need to prove your strength to me? Because you also affirmed my strength in your heart, but you Captain Aizen, and not confident in your own strength. Because of this, you want to use languages to explain your strength to me. After Senju Kusanai finished speaking, Aizen's mind was shaken. Indeed, he hadn't noticed these things before. After hearing Senju Kusanai's question, Aizen finally realized what his behavior just now meant. Could it be that the Senju Kusanai in front of him is actually stronger than himself? If that's the case, then what's the point of his Aizen's painstaking efforts for the past 100 years? Originally, Aizen was still fantasizing about the last intention, until the words of Senju Kusanai just now completely defeated the principle that Aizen had always followed in his heart. Yeah, changing the world is far easier than destroying it. But Senju, if you want to change the world, what would you do? Aizen already has the mentality to ask for advice at this moment. Zanpei Kuto's Shikai was ineffective, Bankai was erased by the illusion, and the proud Hedo was unable to do any damage to Senju Starry Night. Even Hogyoku's secret. He is not as deep as Senju Kusanai's understanding. Senju Kusanai also seemed to see Aizen's humbly asking for advice, but he really said indifferently, honestly, I don't need to change the world. As long as my strength is strong enough, when the world conflicts with myself. The world, of course, needs to be changed for me. Hearing Senju Kusanai's words, Aizen's whole brain was buzzing. He thought he could pretend to be B. Unexpectedly, the Senju Starry Night in front of him is the leader in the B world. In front of Senju Kusanai, his level of pretending to be B is simply a child's play. Otherwise, you will be the king B? Chapter 295, Surrender to me, Aizen. Senju Kusanai looked at Aizen, who was like an ant in front of him, and smiled contemptuously. Your Shikai has no effect on me, and your Bankai has been completely deprived by me. Neither Reiatsu nor Hado, it doesn't work for me at all. Even your proud Hogyoku abandoned you at this crucial moment. How about it? Have you tasted fear? Sweat dripped from Aizen's forehead. Indeed, at this moment, for the first time, he realized his insignificance. Even facing a single person like Senju Kusanai feels helpless or even powerless. Aizen, who has always been confident, felt the fear of belonging to the weak for the first time. Senju Kusanai seemed to see Aizen's fear, and couldn't help sneering. Well, you expect a world without fear to stop and explore hope, and the steps taken to fight back fear are called especially courage. So, if the only thing you believe in from the beginning to the end is power, then how can you be brave when you are in fear and don't have the backing of power? Senju Starry Night's question made Aizen deep in thought. Looking at the condescending posture of Senju Starry Night in front of him, Aizen felt helpless for the first time. That's right. In the past, all my arrogant capital came from power. Now that I have lost my power, I'm like an ant after all. How can I change the world? Hee, it's ridiculous. At this moment, Aizen kept laughing at himself. But Senju Kusanai did not directly kill the killer. Seeing Aizen's attitude of remorse and self-blame, 10 minutes Kusanai smiled slightly instead. Captain Aizen, you are very strong, not even weaker than me. However, you have to know that things in the world are often beyond your control. You might as well surrender to me, and I will give you a brand new world. When Senju Kusanai finished speaking, Aizen's expression became very ugly. You must know that these words are what he said to Senju Kusanai just now, and not long ago. Now, these words are not sent to himself by Senju Kusanai intact. This is absolutely blatant humiliation. You must know that Aizen values face very much, but at this moment Senju Kusanai actually humiliated him directly. This is simply worse than death. But there is nothing to do. Senju 3. No. Senju-sama, you win. Although Aizen was still very unwilling, he finally lowered his head while gritting his teeth. Master Senju, I, Aizen SoKyoku, would like to stand on your shoulders and do my best to die. While expressing his loyalty, Aizen could clearly hear resentment in his voice. Obviously not sincere. Everyone present was also looking forward to Senju Kusanai's decision. They don't doubt the strength of Senju Starry Night. As long as he wants, Aizen must die. However, the current Aizen expressed submission to him, and that attitude was obviously very unwilling. Will Senju Starry Night leave hidden dangers for herself? Baragan looked up at the position of Senju Starry Night. A single eye was full of light. Of course he hoped that Senju Kusanai could kill Aizen. However, Captain Aizen, you have passed my test. From now on, as long as you submit to me, I will not treat you badly. Hearing what Senju Kusanai said, Aizen SoKyoku finally breathed a sigh of relief. Based on his initial guess, he thought that Senju Kusanai would directly kill people and silence them without leaving any future troubles. Task for flowers. After all, his abilities are too prominent, and he is also a conspirator. To use his abilities against a person, he only needs to use some intrigues. His existence is an unstable factor for anyone. However, Senju Kusanai finally kept him. This is simply extra merciful. Thinking of this, Aizen is directly grateful to Senju Starry Night. Master Senju, you don't remember the faults of villains, and your broad-mindedness is absolutely admirable to me. Even though I, Aizen SoKyoku, offended me so much, Senju-sama forgave me. This grace of not killing is like recreating my parents of Aizen. I, Aizen, swear here today that from now on, I, Aizen, will work hard to keep Master Senju safe. Seeing that he joined Senju Starry Night, Inuaraheim was also puzzled by this move. Master Senju, why do you trust Aizen? You have to know how dangerous this person is. Why not just kill him? Facing Anuaraham's doubts, Senju Kusanai just smiled lightly. He uses the same ability in Shizui's Sharingan, which is the ability to use illusions to alter a person's subconscious mind. Although the recovery period is relatively long, Yushu Kusanai still decided to perform this illusion once. After all, Aizen's ability is very outstanding. Why not have such a subordinate? Anyway, with the illusion, it is impossible for Aizen to betray himself. Senju Starry Night naturally has no worries, and at this moment, Aizen is immersed in the greatest kindness that the other party did not kill him, but for himself. Chapter 296, Ability to Decay and Aging. Poor Aizen was perfectly unaware that his subconscious had changed. Seeing Aizen swearing allegiance, Senju Kusanai smiled with relief on his face. Then, Senju Kusanai glanced at the many Arancars in the Void Knight Palace, including Baragan, the king of the Void Circle, among them. Now that Aizen has surrendered to me, what about all of you? Except for Baragan, everyone basically looked at each other, as if they were confirming their opinions. Master Senju, now that Master Aizen has sworn allegiance to you, we naturally have no other intentions. Yes, Master Aizen has sworn allegiance to Master Senju at the 480 at this moment, so we also pledge our allegiance to you, Master Senju. Senju, Senju, Senju. For a moment, turbulent waves erupted inside and outside Xui Palace, and deafening slogans were shouted loudly. At this moment, Senju Kusanai looked at Baragan. I heard you were the former king of Hueco. TSK. I didn't expect that the majestic king of Hueco can only take the second place of Espada. What a shame. Baragan seemed to feel Senju Kusanai's disdain, and raised his head full of anger, looking directly at Senju Kusanai's position. Since Master Senju has subdued Aizen, we shall follow the new master. You must know that although Baragan is also arrogant, his IQ is definitely online. He is the clearest about Aizen's strength, but now even a person of Aizen's level has nothing to do with such a person. Naturally, he, Baragan, wouldn't be this early bird. Seeing Senju Star Yoruichi step by step towards the throne of Xui Palace, all the people present followed him and knelt on one knee. I pledge my allegiance to Master Senju. The sound wave shook the sky and went straight to the sky. Senju Kusanai looked down for a week, and finally sat slowly towards the direction of the throne. Baragan, come here and stand before me. Senju Kusanai sat on the throne of the Xui Palace, and even raised his legs leisurely. Baragan raised his head slightly, and saw Kiankian Kusanai's arrogant appearance at a glance. After seeing Senju Kusanai's contemptuous expression, the anger in Baragan's heart was about to be uncontrollable. Senju, a deep voice sounded, and Jing Miligang was moaning angrily. However, recalling the battle between Aizen and Senju Starry Night just now, Baragan did not dare to act rashly. After a little weighing, Baragan decided to follow Senju Kusanai's order and came before Baragan. Baragan, I know you are still dissatisfied. I can give you a chance for revenge. Presumably you are still very confident in your ability to age? Baragan heard the words, but did not answer immediately. And Senju Kusanai pursued the victory and continued to ask, if I give you another chance, can you kill me without being hypnosis? Halfway through, Senju Kusanai's eyes became sharper, and it definitely didn't look like a joke. It has to be said that Baragan was really moved at the moment. If he can compete openly, Gongkingang is confident that he will be invincible with his aging ability. It seemed to see what was going on in Baragan's mind. Senju Kusanai stood up directly, smiled and said, Baragan, you can use your abilities to your heart's content. I, Senju Kusanai, will never use illusions. Senju Kusanai was very calm when he spoke, which made Baragan feel guilty. After all, people's words cannot be easily believed. If Senju Kusanai is actually lying to deceive himself, and he is stupid enough to believe it easily, if Senju Kusanai suddenly gets into trouble, wouldn't he be unable to deal with it at all? When he realized that Baragan still hadn't moved, Senju Kusanai stared anxiously. I remember you once said that whether it is flowers, birds, fish and insects or the grass and trees in the world, as long as everything that exists between the heaven and the earth can never escape the law, it is aging and death. You say there is no such thing as immune aging. But I want to try the power of aging for myself. When Senju Kusanai spoke, his expression was relaxed, but Baragan was already in a cold sweat. In a panic, Fa asked again, you don't really want to experience the power of aging, do you? Senju Star 3.4 Yi nodded, that depends on whether your ability is worth using for me. During the speech, the meaning of Senju Starry Night has also been expressed very clearly. I am not willing to include everyone. You have to show your ability. Only by achieving the effect that satisfies me can I continue to survive. At the same time, Baragan clenched his fists tighter when he heard Senju Kusanai's words. Since you want to see my ability to age, you can't blame me. While speaking, Baragan had a Zanpei Kuto in his hand. Corrupt, Skeleton King. Chapter 297, Sigh of Death. Decompose, Skeleton Land. Accompanied by Baragan's return to the sword, a powerful black and purple Reiatsu shot up into the sky. The extremely tyrannical power instantly spread and swept up, forming a powerful whirlwind around Baragan's body. A wave of old and feeble energy instantly dissolved his flesh and blood, revealing the white bones inside. Is this the return blade of the Baragan? Sure enough, it is very oppressive. It is worthy of being the king of Mundo. Senju Kusanai smiled and expressed emotion. He is still very satisfied with Baragan's performance. Although there is still room for improvement in Reiatsu, this ability to age everything is the most effective way to fight against the Invisible Empire. Finding that Senju Kusanai hadn't spoken for half a day, Baragan let out a piercing laughter from his skull. Hey, are you scared by the power of my return? It's not over yet. With a roar, Baylor's 25th gang stretched out his hand forward, as if an invisible force from the void hovered in his palm in an instant. In the next second, a pitch-black chain fell from the sky, and the other end of the chain was connected to a very huge axe of death. No one has ever been able to resist the ability to age. Anyone or thing ages, even Reiatsu, no matter how powerful Hado or Kaido. Over time, signs of aging are doomed and cannot be avoided anyway. Even if it is eternity, it is nothing more than a matter of time in the face of aging. Not only Kaido's, but also any other abilities, will be powerless in the face of aging revolving heaven. While speaking, Baragan stretched out a skeleton finger and put it on his forehead, lowered his voice and said in a low voice, "Decompose." Death sighs. Accompanied by the falling of the voice, a decaying atmosphere completely diffused around Baragan. That is the dead air from hell, as if it can corrode everything in the world. Wherever the breath of death goes, everything will wither. Whether it is the surrounding buildings, or even the gravel and rubble, they all wither quickly. Your attack is too slow. As long as I want to, I can dodge it in 100 ways. However, since I want you to experience the feeling of despair, I directly choose to take the move directly. The moment Baragan used his ability, Senju Kusanai directly reached out to touch the black dead air. Everyone was amazed when they saw such a scene, especially Harem and Nelliel. The two girls were even more surprised and exclaimed, "Master Senju, be careful." Especially Nelliel, as the predecessor of the third Espada, Nelliel was originally an existence second only to Baragan. Naturally, he also knew about Baragan's abilities. "Master Senju, don't force it. Baragan's old age ignores everything and dies in it. If the evil spirit is infected, it will definitely spread to the whole body. Either the hand will be broken, or it will not be stolen." With Nelliel's reminder, Senju Kusanai didn't care at all, and was still raising his hands to resist the attack of Death's Sigh. And Aizen, who was still looking for an opportunity to sneak attack Senju Kusanai just now, started to worry about Senju Kusanai's safety from the bottom of his heart. How is this going? Shouldn't I be happy if Senju Starry Night is swallowed by death energy? Why should I worry about him? Aizen, who was extremely smart, finally felt something was wrong at this moment. However, no matter how he guessed, he would never guess that Senju Kusanai had cast illusions on his subconscious mind. Although he didn't know why he did this, Aizen was secretly ready to act. If Baragan's behavior threatens Senju Starry Night, Aizen will be the first to strike. And Harem is also ready for medical treatment at any time. With Senju Kusanai's ability, she must be able to cut off her arm at a critical moment to survive, and this situation is her opportunity to perform. You must know that Shuangshan Gaijin's judgment ability is also an absolute power that takes precedence over all rules. Even if it is a broken hand, it can be restored to the strongest state of 787. At this time, everyone has basically acquiesced in what will happen next. Senju Starry Night must not be able to resist the erosion of death energy. Right under the eyes of everyone, the black aura of the Sigh of Death directly engulfed Senju Kusanai's entire body. At this moment, Nelliel and Harem also let out a heart-wrenching wail. No, how so? However, Aizen has a calm face, and there seems to be a sense of relief in his expression. After the smoke dissipated, Bailuo's expressionless skull seemed to become very shocked. This is impossible. What method did you use? Although I don't know what happened, you must have escaped my attack. There is no one in the world who can take my death sigh. What method did you use? Am I under an illusion? Baragan's mood became very agitated at the moment. Chapter 298, Frontal Resistance. Although the performance of the others was not as exaggerated as Baragan's, the expressions of everyone present were all stunned, for they too were visibly beholding Baragan's sighs of death surrounding him. Senju Kusanai, who should have decayed and turned into dust, stood intact in front of everyone at this moment. The breeze was blowing, but Senju Kusanai stood proudly all the time. That calm and breezy attitude even created an illusion. Is everything just now really just an illusion? But how is this done? Everyone was puzzled by the clothes, but Harem and Nelliel finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the Senju Starry Night in front of them, they realized that their worries were really unnecessary. The strength of Senju Kusanai is definitely beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Also aware of this, there is also Aizen who just played against each other. You must know that it is absolutely unwise to oppose Senju Starry Night. At this moment, Baragan just realized this, but he didn't want to believe it. How can it be? Even if it is as strong as Aizen, you can only find a way to avoid my attack. How could someone take it head-on? Illusion. Definitely an illusion. Looking at the hysterical Baragan, Senju Starry Night just smiled slightly. who said it was an illusion. While speaking, Senju Kusanai teleported in front of Baragan. Just now, there was still a long distance away, but in the blink of an eye, he teleported in front of him. Baragan was a little dazed. Taking advantage of Baragan's stupefaction, Senju Kusanai reached out and touched Baragan's multiple crowns. Your crown is crooked. I'll help you straighten it. Senju Starry Knight's sudden action doesn't seem to catch anyone off guard. It can be said that not only is it not fast, but the calmness in the movements is very indifferent. But even so, Baragan still couldn't dodge, and could only let Senju Kusanai touch his crown. Know that this is the symbol of his Mundo the Great, a symbol of his pride. Although it has been defeated by Aizen, surrender to a Shinigami. However, with this humiliation, Baragan still wears multiple crowns. The crown, which is regarded as such a treasure, was touched by Senju Kusanai at will at this moment. Baragan's whole body was shocked again. Quick, too fast. How could it be so fast? Is this the speed Shinigami can achieve? Surprised, Baragan thought again. Did you just choose this method to avoid my sigh of death? Facing Baragan's question, Senju Kusanai shook his head calmly. As I said, I will receive your attack from the front, so I will not use illusion or space-type abilities. If you don't believe it, you can cast it again. Holding a skeptical attitude, Baragan tried to condense the rotten aura in his body on his fingertips. Breath of Decay, accompanied by a low moan, a scaled-down version of the sigh of death came out of his hand in an instant, shooting directly in the direction of Senju Kusanai from his fingertips. But this time Senju Kusanai still did not dodge or evade, reaching out his hand to receive such an attack. This time Baragan watched Senju Starry Knight's movements very carefully. If Senju Kusanai wants to play tricks this time, it must be unable to escape Baragan's eyes. However, amid such expectant gaze, Baragan's expression suddenly became very shocked. Disappeared. It disappeared. How could my rotten power disappear out of thin air? What the hell did you do? Facing Baragan's puzzlement, Senju Kusanai released a fire style casually. The flame at the fingertips exploded in an instant, and the temperature reached the surrounding air. However, in the next second, the extremely hot fire style was absorbed by Senju Starry Night again. As you just saw, I absorbed his energy. Whether it's chakra, Reiatsu, or the breath of decay you released, they are all the same in my eyes. As long as I want, as long as I have enough worlds, I can absorb all the abilities by myself. Of course, it also includes your decaying breath. After hearing Senju Kusanai's explanation, Baragan's emotions became more agitated at the moment. Li Qianzhou. How can this be? My rotten breath can age everything. Theoretically, as long as my corruption speed is enough, my ability can corrupt everything. Before the words fell, a breath of death appeared on the soldier's finger again. A breath of death covered by pitch-black flames shot out like a pitch-black arrow, accompanied by a strong breath of decay, and instantly attacked Senju Starry Night. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the pitch-black arrow disappeared without a sound again. This time, Baragan also saw the situation clearly. It seems to be absorbed into it. My power ... was absorbed by the gram. Chapter 299, Make a Rule. Knowing this moment, Baragan finally saw what had just happened. It turns out that Senju Kusanai was able to absorb his own power. But how is this possible? Even if it is defensive power, as long as it exists in this world, it will be restricted by aging. Even if it is a defensive skill, it will fall apart in the face of aging and decay into dregs. How the hell did you do it? Seeing Baragan's almost crazy appearance, 10 minutes. Kusanai snorted indifferently. Is this hard to understand? If my defense is a power that ages with time, your power to attack is also a power that ages. Since the strength of others can be aged by the breath of decay, then your skills should also age with time, right? Hearing Senju Kusanai's analysis, Baragan was shocked again. Apparently, Senju Starry Night guessed right again. Seeing that Baragan didn't know what to say, Senju Kusanai continued to pursue the victory. If your skills will also age, why is it not reflected in the process of use? According to my analysis, your decaying breath is just accelerating the aging time of something. For example, the human body and the surrounding things need to age quickly in the world. For an ordinary human body, it only needs to accelerate aging for 100 years to make it fragile. If it is to accelerate the aging of thousands of years in an instant, it can be instantly dusted by Huai. But your own skills are not affected by this time acceleration. Am I guessing right? Hearing Senju Kusanai's analysis, Baragan instantly felt that the man in front of him was terrifying. Unexpectedly, it was just a simple meeting, and the other party directly saw through his ability. However, Senju Starry Night continues to analyze at this moment. Not only that, for those things with a relatively short decay time, you only need to use the basic skill of decay breath, but to face Hado with strong power and longer raging time or other things that are not easy to decay, you have to use a more powerful death sigh. That is to say, the effect that your skills can achieve is actually related to your Reiatsu strength. If your power is strong enough, you can accelerate the flow of time to the maximum, and the ability to decay will become more powerful. When Senju Kusanai said this, Baragan had completely lost the idea of resistance at the moment. But Star, who was always silent at the side, raised his own question. Even if you know the principle of aging, how did you completely absorb this decaying breath? Facing Stark's question, Senju Kusanai just smiled lightly and said, I just demonstrated it. I can absorb and digest any energy. As for the principle behind this, I don't need to explain in detail. In fact, it is not necessary to be mysterious, but the power of Rinnegan's 6 paths is based on the ability of the fairy art chakra. Even if you explain it to them, these people must not understand what CGBJ chakra is. Therefore, Senju Starry Night is too lazy to talk nonsense. But the Senju Starry Night just now did have elements of gambling, because the hungry Kaido in 6 paths can not only absorb chakra's attacks, but even physical attacks. Senju Kusanai also tried it with the attitude of giving it a try. Sure enough, the sigh of death based on Reiatsu's power can also be absorbed. At this moment, Baragan finally realized how terrifying the man in front of him was. No wonder it was able to defeat Aizen. It seems that these are definitely not accidental. Baragan, let me ask you now, do you still want to fight me? Hearing this, Baragan quickly shook his head. No more fights. No more fights. You can't beat them at all. Obviously just choosing such a magical power to frighten himself. Now he still asks himself if he dares to fight. Isn't this setting rules for yourself? If this had been done before, Baragan would have been furious. Even when Aizen used illusion to defeat him, his idea was just to wait for the opportunity to sneak attack and kill Aizen in seconds. This shows that his psychology has never yielded to Aizen, but he is only afraid of Aizen's power. However, now facing Senju Starry Night, Baragan didn't even have the thought of resisting. The main reason is that the aging ability he is so proud of can't exert any effect at all. Even if it is a sneak attack, even if it can hit with one blow, it will not be able to pose any threat to Senju Kusanai. In this case, there is no need to resist at all. I don't know what happened recently. Before Tia Rival hurt herself, a Shinigami named Aizen came right after. Before he succeeded in sneak attack, he met Senju Starry Night again. HMPH, was I, Baragan, just a frog in a well? Just when Baragan was feeling emotional, Senju Kusanai smiled faintly again, and asked his soul, Baragan, do you want to become stronger? Chapter 300, Your Reiatsu is too weak. Just when Baragan was feeling emotional, Senju Kusanai smiled faintly again, and asked his soul, Baragan, your abilities are heaven-defying, but Reiatsu is really, really weak. You call yourself Mundo, but after becoming a Rankara Espada, your serial number can only be ranked second. In the end, isn't it because your Reiatsu is too weak? After Senju Kusanai finished speaking, although Baragan was upset, he had no practical solution. After all, he is not Senju Kusanai's opponent, so even if he has objections, he can only bear with it. However, Kianzi Kusanai looked at Aizen. Captain Aizen, I remember you still have an Arankar named Ulqui or a Cipher here, right? Hearing Senju Starry Night's question, Aizen also smiled immediately, and replied, that's right, Ulqui or a Cipher is my 4th Espada, and I ordered him to go to the real world to observe the power of Kurosaki Epigo and see his strength. Will it pose a threat to us? Hearing Aizen's answer, Tanzi Kusanai was not surprised. If there are no special accidents, Ulqui or a Cipher should have gone to reality together with the infinitely evolved Yami. However, without Ulqui or a Cipher's testimony, Senju Starry Night is left to explain itself. Baragan, as the king of Komodo, you should know something about Rankar's returning blade, right? As one of the few Vasto Lords in Komodo, have you forgotten that you still have some powers that you haven't realized? Hearing Senju Starry Night's words, Baragan fell into deep thought. Forgotten power? Seeing that Baragan was still not enlightened, Senju Kusanai asked directly, the number of your Espada is based on Reiatsu after returning to the blade, and the number of Ulqui or a Cipher is 4, but as far as I know, the Reiatsu after he completely returned to the blade is even and more than Stark. Senju Kusanai's words made everyone present stunned. Can surpass Stark in terms of Reiatsu? How is this possible? Hearing that Ulquiola's Reiatsu is stronger than Stark, Tia Rival, who hadn't spoken for a long time, couldn't help but sigh. You must know that Stark is the only Vasto Lord who owns Rankar in Espada, and Reiatsu is definitely the strongest existence in Espada. Baragan's disdain was visible to the naked eye when he heard Haliba's remarks. Is the difficulty of self-propelled Rankar high? I just disdain a Rankar. I don't want my pure power to be polluted by Shinigami's ability. Baragan, who was already a dense skeleton, looked at Tialiba with hatred in his eyes. You must know that the reason why he is one-eyed is due to Tialiba in front of him. Back then, he was kind enough to solicit, but he didn't expect that Haliba, who didn't know the current affairs, would directly stab himself in the eye. This hurtful enemy, Baragan, hasn't retaliated yet, so he is naturally unhappy at the moment. As a Vasto Lord, you still need to borrow the power of Shinigami. As Komodo, I disdain this behavior. After Baragan finished speaking, Stark smiled lightly, but aren't you already a Rankar? You must know that the creation of Rankar is part of the ability of Shinigami. Since you look down on Shinigami's ability, why accept Rankar? Stark's words stunned Baragan for a moment. Isn't this an out-of-the-box question? Ask for flowers. If he hadn't been beaten mercilessly by Aizen, Baragan would have really looked down on Arrancar's strength. Everyone was arguing, and Senju Kusanai immediately sank his breath. Everyone, stop arguing, I'm not interested in these things. While talking, Senju Kusanai looked at Baragan. So, we have talked so much, do you know the secret about Guiren? Hearing this, Baragan closed his single eye, and countless fragments of the past flashed through his mind. From the moment when I became Kzu, I devoured all the way to become Menos Grand. I don't know how many years have passed. From Kylian to Ajuches, and finally to Vasto Lord, each stage is a history book. Reminiscing about the past, Baragan exudes a strange quality. The so-called return to the blade is actually the return of Kzu's ability. Instead of returning to the blade, it is actually better to call the sword to be liberated. Kzu's sword release and Shinigami's Zanpei Kuto release share similarities, but are fundamentally different. As for Arrancar's behavior, the reason why he was able to upgrade to a terrifying ability was not just a change in appearance. After becoming Arrancar, the biggest benefit is that the strength will no longer degenerate, which is indeed a disguised enhancement for the level below Ajuches. However, for a Minos Grand like Vasto Lord who is already close to a human form, and whose abilities will not degenerate any longer, this ability is useless again. However, precisely because of the evolution to the final Vasto Lord, the upper limit of continued evolution has actually been unlocked. In other words, Arrancar should have been an ability that could only be mastered at the Vasto Lord level. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.